Yeah, no, I need to shave, but the wife keeps telling me, I'm like, hey, when do I cut this thing? And she's like, don't. And I'm like, I'm just gonna keep this shit going.
Dude,
But what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to grow this thing out so it turns into like a poofy fro. Um, so I have this thing going,
you get like the Bob
and
Ross
like
look going on, meet Santa Claus.
yeah, so yeah, seriously. So like I don't want this to be clean shaven with the poof. So that's the balance that I'm trying to strike right now. It's not
Do
working.
you have curly hair?
Yeah,
Dude,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
gonna be
So this
awesome.
like
I want a Bob
this
Ross
curl.
afro. That's what I want.
Yeah, yeah. It's coming. It's coming. Because I've been promising myself that I was going to do it for a while, and it just never occurred. Um, but yeah. So I'm actually going to welcome the people who are listening. So welcome to Counterpoints. My name is Connor. We're here with what? What do you want to go by? Do you want to go by your channel name, or
Joe
what do you want to?
GKR, either one, it's fine.
Yeah, Joe GKR, who was going by a different Discord name, and he's been with us since the very beginning, holding me to account. And actually, he was one of the people who most encouraged me about this channel because I was like, "Holy shit! Here's a smart motherfucker who's basically holding me to task over the bullshit that I say online. I must be doing something right if he's willing to call me not a dumbass, but willing to be like, hey, here's where I think you're wrong. So being worthy of your time for criticism actually made me confident enough to continue with the whole YouTube thing. So I want to thank you for
Dude,
that.
I'm happy that you like. I'll be honest. It's easy to drift into that nihilism. So when I find someone who I disagree with, who's like really like good faith, it's like you bring out my inner lib, okay? And I mean that in the best. I mean that in the best possible way. I'm like the meritocracy can work. You know, people want to hear like good arguments and like maybe change their mind or give them something to think about. And like you get that almost like nowhere. And like even though like I know we play in disagreements, but like I know like it happens in not necessarily civil. I don't like civility is nice, I guess, but the fact that I know like okay, this person's listening. You're not just talking past each other, and you're actually sort of like discussing ideas. So what's funny is like I meant to like start this off for your audience. Like it might be boring for you because it's a conversation with me and Connor, and you're just there for the ride. Okay, my goal is to change his mind here, and I'm not like actually trying to talk to an audience on this one. So it might get kind of like weird or boring or overly pedantic or something, but it's because I don't give a shit about you. It's me and him time, and you're just there for the ride.
But see that's also where I don't need like so for me with the channel or whatever like we could be doing the same thing everybody else is doing which is just like
Yeah.
fucking blood sports, fuck you're a dumbass, you don't know what you're talking about, you stupid piece of shit. We could be doing all that shit, but that if you look back since the very beginning, that's not the way that we do conversations or debates here. Like I call people stupid twats in panel shows because they're being twats, but for the most part if somebody comes on here and they're not being an asshole, like it doesn't really get heated. Like I really try to understand what somebody's saying, and even when I disagree, that I like that shit because it's like this is what I believe. Now I got to defend it. So is what I believe defensible? And I'm sure we'll find out.
So we got 3 topics on the agenda. Okay. One of them
Nice.
I became a little more impassioned about lately, so I think it's going to be fun.
Uh-oh.
So I'll tell you roughly how long I want to spend on each one so that we don't get hopefully bogged down
Sure.
on the first one, which you're going to be tempted to because you're crazy. But you're good crazy, and I love that, okay? So it's fine. So the first one's going to be like about how you talk about the Second Amendment, how I think you should just a little bit. Hopefully not more than like 20 minutes on that. And the second one I want to talk about, I'm going to give you the hard defund the police, okay? Not like I think we should just take some money, put it towards feeding the No, like these cops just literally need less money, like massively less money. We need less police. We need them with less shit. We literally need to take their cars. I want them walking through the street, interacting with the general public, okay? I want 20,000 steps a day on these fat motherfuckers. I want them in the gym, okay? I want no more sitting in your car. To be stereotypical, eating donuts, okay? Watching Netflix, okay? I might be just giving too much away at what they do at my job.
Well, shit. I mean,
that's
so
where we're
we've
going
agreed on a few things.
20,000 steps a day, okay? I want every Fitbit. I want them to be their own category of just like these mountain men just hiking, okay?
Damn, that's actually that's extremely based. So I'm I'm looking forward to that one. What's the last one?
I think the last one we talked about, you want to just like throw around like the race realist arguments or something, and just see like how well versed I am on that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We'll do that for fun.
I think it's really easy for me. We don't have to start now, obviously, but it's really easy for me to have like the reflexive defenses for like race realism and why it's wrong and all that kind
Yeah.
of shit. But I would rather, since you said that you're like more comfortable with it, I would rather have somebody who's comfortable with it, forwarding those arguments. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, let's.
I went from to be clear, I went from very not comfortable to
Mhm.
slightly more comfortable with a lot of their talking points. Because, for example, like
I'm good with that.
the IQ memes and something. Like I read a really good book called like The Mismeasure Man, and when he starts talking about like most people know the meme like, oh, the IQ test was initially for the IQ test was initially for diagnosing people with like extreme learning disabilities. Like it was very good intentions, and of course he goes over that point. But there's a lot more to it than just that. Like how like we just made up these metrics, like this whole like general intelligence. So it's all just kind of like these made up metrics, and I tend to be someone who's very good at test taking. So if you're good on one of these things, you tend to be good on the others, and it's just like, you're not actually measuring general intelligence in any like significant way. But I don't know, whatever.
Yeah,
We'll get there when we get there, I suppose.
I'll be super interested in that, and then I'll give you my reflexive pushback. But
Yeah.
let's start with the guns because I'm enabling the crazy.
Let's do it. Let's see. Hold on. I got notes, and here's the order that my list is in. Okay. Actually, I didn't put any notes down for the 2A extremism one, so we're just gonna wing this. It's fine. What's funny is I've been trying to have this conversation for what, like 8 months or something, and it's just been pushed off because we're both just like doing other stuff and whatever. So I had it all like fresh in the head. I'm like, it'll be fine. We'll just go with it. So I made this criticism. I'm gonna throw it on the screen real quick. Actually, I hope I can do it. Let's see. So I think we were talking. I'm trying to remember exactly what I went. Whoops! I googled Counterpoints, not Counterpoints. That's not going to show you up, huh? That I don't have an issue with the Second Amendment, and I think we could. So I don't want to like totally lead it, but I'm gonna like make a statement. So there's no problem with violence in politics necessarily. Okay, the only issue with violence in politics is the order it comes in terms of like how you're reacting to a given situation, right? So like I remember one of your first things was like a 10-part video series on the Second Amendment. Is that a fair summation of one of your first YouTube topics?
It's 4 parts, but yes, and I'm gonna let a dog in. 1 second.
All right.
Jesus. Yeah, so sorry about that, but it's a 4-part series that I invite people to go back into because we actually break down. Like I take 20 minutes to explain what could be explained in 2 minutes, but it's effectively a breakdown of each clause, like in the Second Amendment.
Yeah, and my general so I'd make that statement. I guess the other one I'd make is, or actually, this is a question because I actually don't know. Do you value it because it's in the Constitution, or you think it's good that it's in the Constitution, or like what are your views of the Second Amendment and the Constitution, how they like relate to one another?
So I have like a more idealistic version of like natural rights. I think it was you and maybe lefty philosophy who I don't want to put words in your mouth, but they basically expressed like the rights only exist insofar as society is willing to grant them to you. That was at least lefty philosophy's argument, and like I can agree to that because the Second Amendment doesn't exist in China. The right to keep and bear arms isn't a right in China or Venezuela or a whole bunch of other countries, even Western European countries. It doesn't exist. But at the same time, like what I think the Second Amendment actually is, it's a codified articulation of the right to self-defense. And then I know like self-defense is a loaded term, so I'll try to break that down real quick. If somebody is hurting you or attacking you or killing you, you are allowed to hurt or attack or kill them. That's just the way that it is. And it doesn't matter if the government grants you that right or believes in that right or thinks of that right or you have the ability to enforce it. In China, if they literally have like an authoritarian hellscape and secret police are showing up to your door to black bag you, drag you and your wife to the fucking Yangtze River, and chuck you in the river with your hands handcuffed behind your back, you have a natural right to kill those cops and flee. Like that's my personal perspective. So the Second Amendment is it's a codified articulation of that right granted to people. It's something that people already have, but it's basically saying if the government becomes tyrannical, authoritarian, it's destroying your life, it's killing you and your people, you have the right to resist. And in order to enable your right to resist, we're granting, we are codifying the fact that you have the ability to arm yourself.
Okay. And I'm going to ask if you agree with this. I'm pretty sure you will, because I think you're the only person that I think has the courage to own this position. And it's,
Sure.
and I also own it. I'm fine with that. So I think a right like gun ownership comes with like obvious some downsides to it, right? And I think as a society we do want to minimize some of those downsides, right? So I know by having guns, there's going to be more people killed by guns, right? You know that there's going to be a Sandy Hook by virtue of having guns, and sometimes it's the price you got to pay for having something nice, right? That sometimes a bad thing is going to happen, and that's the price for the overarching greater freedom you're going to have in society. Would you agree with that, or do you think that's incorrect?
No, I do agree with that. I think there's things that you can do to mitigate it. So, for instance, like school resource officers building school buildings in a different way, thinking about the way that we can, because mass shootings were still a thing 100 years ago, but they're more of a thing now, obviously, with population density, high availability of firearms, all that kind of stuff. So there's things that we can do to mitigate these risks. But at the end of the day, if somebody's going to grab a rifle, walk into a rifle or a pistol even, the Virginia Tech massacre was 32 people and it was done with a pistol. At the end of the day, there are going to be mass shooters. And the question is, how do we respond to that? Do we just give up firearms? That way we can have European level homicides inside the United States? Or do we say, no, we are protecting against a greater risk?
Yeah.
So 30 people or 50 people a year are going to die in mass shootings every year. And 30,000, I think like 30,000 people are going to kill themselves and 15,000 people are going to die in homicides. I don't think that's just guns. I think that's everything. But 45,000 people are going to die terribly, probably because of the existence of guns in our society every single year. This is the price we pay. That way, if Donald Trump had succeeded in appointing nepotistic assholes that would steal him the election, if he had succeeded in a Muslim ban, if he had succeeded in building the border wall, if he had succeeded in like liquidating ethnic minorities or kicking brown people out or mobilizing white nationalist militias into violence on a large scale, not just in a church shooting, but literally like bands of truck driving assholes rolling around, like throwing acid in the face of like ethnic minorities, then in that situation, like not only is that situation not going to come to pass, likely, but if it did come to pass, then the civilian population has the ability to resist that actively in a competent way.
Yeah. What I would say, like from my perspective, I do think you still want to balance things. I don't like the idea of just saying like we're just going to let like all these people like for example, we mentioned I think it was 3 of the shootings. I think you mentioned 2 or 3 shootings. I know you said Virginia Tech. I mentioned Sandy Hook. I feel like there might have been a 3rd one. I don't remember. But I know those 2 at the very
least. I said
the
church shooting, which was like Dylan Roof. So Charleston or whatever.
I don't know if that...
The church shooting.
What's funny is I used to know more about that. I can't remember specifically offhand if he was like completely like messed up in the head or if that was just
he was messed up in the head, but he was basically a white nationalist domestic terrorist.
Yeah, so... I knew that. I didn't know to what extent he had like there's kind of like a loop of like mental disorders and being a right.
He had a bowl cut, bowl haircut as an adult. So I don't think he was doing.
It's like equivalent to being a brony. Like there's just something wrong there. Like I don't need more information than bowl cut adult. Put him in an asylum.
Even if it's not diagnosed, there's something going on there.
So like usually I support stuff like red flag laws, right? But I also support no assault weapons ban. You can buy whatever gun you want. I don't care. But what I want to make sure is that we those shootings would be solved through like something like red flag laws that were very, very strictly enforced. But it's like, yeah, these people were nuts, and everyone knew they were nuts. Well, maybe Dylan Roof slightly less so because he just lived in a closet and played like WoW and read the Daily Stormer. So I don't know to what extent people outside of his parents were aware. But the other 2 people, like their psychologists were aware. They're like I think the school teachers and their family, like the people were very much aware that these people had issues. We just didn't have mechanisms in place to make sure like, I almost said Hung Min Choi. That's not the guy's name. I don't remember that. I don't remember the
Hung Min Choi might have been Virginia.
No, that's the. I'm pretty sure. Hold on. Hung Min Choi is the name of the city. Hung Min Choi.
No, you're thinking of Ho Chi Minh, bro. I think HEUN.
Hold on. Did I have the name right?
Dude,
I need to know this right now. If I
hey, audience, you're in it.
West Virginia.
Because we need to see how good our brains are actually working.
Virginia Tech. I need to know this right. I'm sorry. I just was my inner pedant.
No,
I need to know.
Sung Hui Cho. You literally, you literally just mixed the words backwards. Sung Hui Cho.
Okay. Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, that's good recall on my part. Okay.
Yeah,
whatever. It was close enough.
Only the best on Counterpoints and GKR. Only the best memory and intelligences are allowed.
Just near perfect recall from playing StarCraft and dating a Korean girl. So I have good recall of Asian names.
Well, and unironically, so you paid me a compliment. I want to pay you a compliment real quick as we continue to get into it. It's like, dude, I don't know, man. Like, it just seems like, especially with the Discord and all that kind of shit. It's just we're attracting some quality people, man. Like some fucking smart, sharp motherfuckers who like you say some bullshit in front of them, like you gotta be careful because you're gonna get called the fuck out.
So I'm turning your Discord into a lefty space almost. Like, well, actually, I think it's you more than anything because the people who not to be overly dismissive of right-wing people, but I'm going to do it right now after saying not to do it, but I'm going to do it. Most of them don't care about having like these like weird like technical discussions. Like, I don't think have you talked to Thomas? T-Lane or whatever. He's a friend of mine. I've known him for like many years, but like he loves just these like in-depth technical discussions about like random topics, and it's something I appreciate about him so much. I'm like, this is the only place on Earth where he'll just find like a whole. I didn't think this would be something he'd be interested in. I brought him here just to talk to what's his name about. We're going so off topic right now, but that's okay.
It's okay. We'll get right back into it.
Yeah. I brought him here to talk to someone about. I think it was evolution, or because he's a geneticist. So I was like, yeah, come here and like talk about this because I don't know about it, so I'm not gonna like talk my ass like we just know because the scientists say so. Like whatever. Like I have a friend who's a geneticist. You want to talk to a geneticist? You ask him questions about evolution. That's fine. I don't know stuff about it. I'm not gonna talk about it. I don't whatever. And so he came around and he just stuck around. I'm like, I didn't even know you like talking about politics on the internet. I just brought you to talk to like, an inquisitive fellow who had questions about like evolution. And then he just enjoyed like every single person he talked to, I guess. So he stuck around. So that's kind of
nice.
It's kind of wild.
Fucking based. Well, so we don't.
One day
that was really like a 30-second advertisement for the Discord. So if you fancy yourself a smart person, you want to argue with other smart people that are like I think they're smart, you can fucking judge for yourself. But yeah, then that's a 30-second ad for the Discord. But
also, there are occasional Nazis. They do get through the filter, but we have fun with them. It's fine. We try and engage them in good faith, and oftentimes we fail. We're working on the method to, reach them, but try again. All right. The second night. Okay, so here's my general criticism. I think I'll call it like the Tiger King problem. I think what you see a lot of like pro 2A people talk about. Actually, I noticed the first time I noticed this was when you're in your conversation with Vash, because he's used to dealing with what's it called? Like white nationalist people who are extremists. Where usually just they're gonna scream the N-word, right? And they'll have their coded language. He's used to hearing their coded language, but like for whatever reason, I'm a lot more. I was at the time at least. I mean, probably less now. I think it faded a little bit. Was a lot more familiar with like anti-government extremist rhetoric. So when you're talking about guns, like I heard what you were saying and he didn't. And what I mean by that is like no. We will kill the government if they infringe on our rights. And he's like, yeah, totally. I'm like, fine with guns. I was like, I don't think you understood to what extent he believed that. And I got it. And I was like, he missed it.
Yeah, I'm literally talking about redneck, rednecks and trucks in the woods, hiding from drones, wearing full plate, and giving the feds a run for their money. Yeah, that's part of what I'm talking about. But that's like, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was like, oh, he doesn't realize what Connor's getting at here, but like I do. So I was like, I wanted to talk about that, and that's the conversation I've been trying to get for like 8 months. So here we are. And what I guess what I mean by that is I don't have a problem with that, and I think what makes people like a Second Amendment like out of touch with reality is like the things that ground them to rest of the world like for example, I don't think you're an unreasonable person, even though I know you hold that as sort of like a fundamental, like a borderline axiomatic with like your right to defend yourself. Like you have the physical means to defend yourself if push comes to shove. I have no problem with that. And the reason why you're reasonable and the rest of these people aren't is because you force yourself to ground that belief in the other realities of the world that we live in. So that's why you're very easily a reasonable person. So someone like him, he sees like, oh, you're really reasonable. I don't see you as a Second Amendment, like a gun extremist. And I'm like, well, he has that. Well, you have that extremist belief, but like you don't have all the other extremist tendencies because you ground that belief with like facts and like all the other shit that you have to deal with, right?
And this is kind of like the danger of democracy, right? This is actually like the danger of a free society, even. And this is actually one of the things that's worrisome, but it's also kind of like the question of like, you know, you have to balance your freedoms and your dangers. You really do. And what's coming up now is Trump is holding a rally on January 6th with locational details to be announced. I almost guarantee you he was talking to his staff about whether or not he could have it literally on the White House lawn and just open the fucking gates for the rally. Like I know shit. I believe that idea has probably been floated. And so basically it's like you have this really weird gaggle fuck of like Proud Boys who are ostensibly libertarian, right? They're ostensibly libertarian. They want the government out of their lives. They want lower taxes. They want all that kind of stuff.
I just imagine the malware reserve, but at the White House, where they're just digging trenches and shitting in the lawn and stuff.
Dude, I'm not that. Okay, yeah, you literally kind of took the words out of my mouth. Where like I don't think it's gonna happen, but at the same time, like you literally could have just like the MAGA cult armed to the teeth, thinking they're libertarian, defending an authoritarian because they just don't understand or care. Like they care about politics, but they don't care enough to actually understand it. And they're just swallowing propaganda left, right, and center. Like it's to the point where like I swim in right-wing circles, right? Like obviously, I have the suspension of disbelief where like I'm like, hey. Like, I think Biden won. I don't think our fucking elections are interfered with. But I just hear so often that the election was stolen, that Trump, you know, the election was wrongfully stolen from Trump, that it, you know, it's criminal behavior that did it, it's massive fraud. And I hear it uttered so confidently that I borderline have to like suspend my belief in reality in order to wonder if like out of fucking nowhere JFK Jr. is gonna fucking show up with the pedo fucking files, fucking like release it to the world, and Nancy Pelosi is gonna be like carted away in fucking handcuffs, sobbing through her fucking, you know, $500,000, you know, fucking makeup and outfit. And then Trump's going to be, you know, fucking vindicated as this fucking savior of the world, because that's what going to be announced as
Trump's. I forgot about that one. I forgot about that. The JFK Jr. being announced as Trump's running mate, and the what was it? This was the RNC or something. Dude died in a plane crash in the 90s.
Dude, straight up, like it's so.
Oh god,
so painful. But like I see things that are not quite as insane as that, but I see things that are like that uttered so confidently. And each milestone that we pass where I'm like, okay, has Trump lost now? And they're like, no. And it's like, has Trump lost now? No. Has Trump lost now? No. Has Trump lost now? I'm like, dude, like what's going to happen on Inauguration Day when he literally just doesn't go back into the fucking White House? What are you going to do?
We're going to have a shadow. We're going to unironically have a deep state, but it's just going to be, you know, ran by Trump, who's now running a second, not shadow government. A shadow government wouldn't be the right term. I don't know.
I'm 100% good with that, because like the Taliban runs like a shadow government inside like Afghanistan or whatever. Maybe we'll just have like the MAGA people inside America just like running away from like the Biden agenda and not complying with any federal rules. And whatever Trump says is what they do. And that's like, dude, that's like, to me, that's where it's like, even seeing like mainstream politicians like Ted Cruz or whatever. Ted Cruz is saying that he's going to vote against like the electoral ratification. I don't know if that's symbolic.
There's like 12. Yeah, it is. They can't really do anything about it because you need both houses to like agree by a plurality for anything to happen. So what's funny is, if you mentioned this, I was on the Sargon of Akkad Discourse. I just go there to kind of like be an asshole. It's the most brainworms place I've ever been in my life. Like
Thank you for your service.
I go there half for like the pain and half for the joy. You know, it's my inner like masochist where I'm just like, let's show me what you got. And I'll just go there and just yell at like 9 people. And it's always the dumbest conversations. But I started there around like the election, right before the election, and I had a $500 bet placed on Biden. So I already got paid out, motherfuckers. So apparently the gambling sites felt confident enough in the outcome. Admittedly, it took them a little while longer than it usually would. It took them like 3 weeks to pay out, but I got my payment by like early December, I think.
Nice.
But so there was a guy there just saying this crazy stuff about the election. He was saying like Trump would win California, and I'm just like, okay. Like, this is nuts, right? So I was like, okay, tell you what, we'll make a friendly bet, right? No real big money. Just like I want you to bet something here, so we have a vehicle to talk about this. I want you to like put something on the line. It'll be like a joke amount. Like I think it was $10 on Trump winning the election, and I gave him 10-1 odds on Trump winning California. And ironically, tried arguing that like he had good odds because the event. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, am I going to explain like what's it?
Dude, so you would have had to pay you 10, and you would pay him 100.
Yes, and he thought it was a good bet. That was just on Trump winning California.
Yeah.
So I got a 10-1 thing, and he's just like, you thought those were good odds. You only won $1. I'm like, it's. I could have given you 10,000 to 1 odds, and you would have still been the underdog in terms of this. But he's just seeing it as though like what I'm spending versus what I'm gaining. I'm like, please never run a gambling site because you really don't understand this. You'll give people 2-1 odds all day, thinking like, dude, I'm gonna double my money. They're idiots. And meanwhile, you're gonna be betting like I don't know, like the Kansas City Chiefs against the fucking New York Jets. And you're like, this fucking idiot. He gave me 2-1 on the Jets winning. I can double my money if the Jets just win. And it's like, yeah. Because there's a 2-1 chance of that happening, you fucking idiot. But yeah, so I told him, I was like, listen, I don't actually want you to pay out. I don't really care, but I just wanted you to stick to this point. Like I wanted you to lay down a line so that we can just try and talk about it. Then turns out he was insane, and I think the other day when I tried to talk to him about it, he was just like, "Election's not over yet, bud." And I'm like, "Oh."
So right. And then that's the question is like, when are we actually going to call it? Because like, so let's say Biden is actually sworn in, then at that point they're just going to call it fraud. And then when Trump runs again, they're going to say that the deep state boxed them out. And that's kind of like, dude, that's where like I see people backing themselves in this rhetorical corner, like talking about Sargon of Akkad, right? So first he was where I'm at, right? The enlightened centrist thing, I'm not like really like super crazy anti SJW, but I do beef with like the more extreme part of the left, right? So he was in the same position I was, but then he was like, okay, well this grift is getting old and it's not getting me the same traction that I used to, so I need to shift a little bit further right, or at least I need to like dog whistle to the further right. Then he said like a few like ethnonat things, like a few little crypto things, a few little, and then he started talking about like how fucking Nick Fuentes is fucking like secretly based and like all that kind of bullshit. And it's like, dude, like, oh my, yeah, dude, like I seriously think he like retweeted from his Robinhood account like a few like Nick Fuentes takes, and it's like, Jesus Christ. So he's basically winking at the furthest right that I think you can go right now in American politics. And then now he's fucking, apparently his Discord server is fucking filled with fucking Trump MAGA dipshits. And it's like, what? Like, you took the like, honest political argument, but because it wasn't a cash cow for you, you backed yourself into a corner with fucking insane people. And it's like, I guess that if that's the grift, if money's more important than reality, then I guess that's the game, right? So whatever.
It's for that. I see. That's the thing. Like, I would never lump you in the same category as that person. Okay, I think too highly of you, and I've never thought highly of Sargon of Akkad. People are like, oh, he's this natural centrist guy.
You can find, like, I'll literally text you my address, and you can end it, because like it's either like I've turned like purposefully evil, or I literally have early onset dementia. Either way,
this poor guy. I'll just show up like Anton, what's it, Chigrin or whatever, with the cattle fraud thing. Like, it this time. You must go.
Yeah.
Okay, you have the good run, Connor. I'll hold you on your bed, just pat your head, just like it's okay, then just
it's okay, buddy.
You had a good run, but we turned the corner here. It's fine.
And part of the reason why I say shit like that too is because like I know there has to be that temptation, right? Like for these people to keep falling into the same traps, to like to basically like to give an audience what it wants instead of what you think. You know what I'm saying? I think we've seen plenty of internet personalities go down this road.
It's I think I think that's like the lefty black pill in me, or the thing that came close to being like oh fuck, we're all so fucked, is like it's almost better when you think all these people are bad faith, because you realize like, oh no, fuck, they all just believe it. Oh my god, we're so much worse off than I thought. Oh no. All the not even just that the base believes. I mean, most people can believe that the base believes like stupid shit. But like when you realize like the people saying it are also just completely like insane, because they're in like these weird little like echo chambers where they get like applauded when they say X, and then ignored when they say Y. If you get that weird like sort of feedback loop where he realizes he posts a video ranting about like, I don't know, we'll just say Anita Sarkeesian or something, and he gets 1 million views, and then he says a video like where he's just like I don't know, like Bernie Sanders is an okay guy, and he only gets like 50k views or 100,000 views, and then like he gets that reinforcement of like, oh, I should make more just bitching about women stuff, you know. And then it just kind of drives more of that.
No, seriously, and that was one of the interesting things. So I'll even say it out loud because this will probably come out after that. But I worked with, like, you know, we can talk about it, but the Lauren Southern debate or whatever, or the Lauren Southern live stream, I think is going to be on like the 16th or something like that. In talking to her, like I've heard from other people that she's like a secret liberal. I've heard from other people that like she doesn't believe what she says or some shit like that. And as far as I know, she fucking believes what she's saying.
Yeah.
Like the mask never slipped. She never fucking, you know, conceded any like whenever I brought up like a centristy or more like lefty take or whatever in like a private conversation or something like that. There wasn't like, oh yeah, I believe you, but you know, I gotta play to my audience. Jeez, like that never happened. So she's either a phenomenal liar or she believes what she's saying.
Her year off is actually her just going back to Bohemian Grove for leftist indoctrination, just so she can reaffirm her undercover status. Yeah, in the right way ethno-state.
But you know what? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe she disappeared for a year in order to like get back into character because the mask was starting to crack. So she had to go deep. She had to go back in for like re-indoctrination. Deep cover.
That's actually where she went. She was just hanging out with Hillary Clinton in the woods, just like, I need to reaffirm my liberal values, you know? I can go back undercover with the far right people. They were starting to get to me. You know, when you stare into the abyss stares back.
Oh, dude, like I mean, that's like more of a comforting fantasy than reality. But that's the thing is, unironically, so talking about guns or whatever, and kind of like tangentially bringing it into this part of the conversation, like that's one of the really interesting things about meeting these people, talking to these people, all that kind of stuff, realizing that they're actually hardcore believers.
Wait, hold on. I got one more riff before we get to off topic. I just imagine her just in a group therapy session with Hillary Clinton, like, I can't believe it. I went to Africa and started yelling about the genocide of white farmers. And I also got on a boat and started harassing immigrants who were just trying to flee war-torn countries.
You just like racked with
it gazed back into me. Oh man, just and Hillary Clinton's just patting her on the back like, it's okay, dear, it's okay. I once called black people super predators. We all roll around, we all catch the filth and we roll around in it.
Yeah, it's all for the greater good. It's all for the greater good.
Oh god.
Yeah. No, and that's oh man, yeah, that
like I said 20 minutes on this topic. We're probably like, I don't know, at least 40. It's okay though.
Yeah,
I'm in no rush.
I'll relate it back to guns really quick. Because what's interesting is like I think you can hold these higher level ideals, and actually, I think this is real politics. I think I've been part of the problem with like enlightened centrism or whatever. Like seriously, part of the problem with it is that you get to be above the fray because nobody believes what you believe. Nobody is as nuanced or intelligent or charitable or good faith as you are. So you get to be above politics. You don't have to advocate for a side. You don't have to pick a side in the political binary. When the left does something fucked up, you can call it out. When the right does something fucked up, you can call it out. And that's actually really comforting for somebody like me because I don't like being, and this is the truth, is like, I don't like my choices to turn around and literally just like destroy lives. You know what I'm saying? That's like a choice that like, I take voting, I take politics, I take, kind of like perspectives really ultra seriously because the truth is that what we believe impacts the world and it literally people live and die based off of belief. So that's why I take belief ultra seriously, but that can lead to a sort of like paralysis where right-wing politics or left-wing politics is never pure enough for you to participate, which is actually why I like our voting system actually, because, or at least the I think I've voted twice now. I actually like the fact that I can make local domestic choices about like state level initiatives that actually have like a measurable impact on my community. I like that I have some say in my representatives who I can like look up their history and kind of who they are and what they represent and all that kind of stuff. I like that because if I literally had to make a choice of like, are we going to end the drug, or are we going to completely legalize drugs and just fuck the crack babies? And are we going to completely like slash the social safety net? And I individually had to make that choice. Like, dude, that's paralyzing. That's terrifying. Literally, your choices impact who lives and who dies. But that's politics. And that's where I actually want to extend a begrudging respect to the true believers who find themselves on the political binary, because I hope they know that their choices have impacts on real human beings, and they make those choices anyways. But that being said, they make terrible and shitty choices, and I'm going to call them out for the terrible and shitty.
It's funny you talk about that because I can't remember. I was having that weird. I was having a conversation that you're like the how do you know you're right thing, and like technically you don't, right? And like that's the sort of nervy part. And like when you're trying to build a political movement, you can't. Like, imagine if Bernie Sanders walked out to a crowd and he's just like, listen, everybody, here's my motivating speech. I think this might be the right thing to do, but I could be wrong, and some people could die, but material conditions might improve. So we're just going to take this cautious optimism. Like, you do not build a political movement with carefully caveated, like minimalistically framed positions, right? If you want to move a conversation in a direction, you walk out there, you're like, listen, the rich are trying to eat your babies, and we need to put them in their place, okay? Where they were underneath the boot of FDR, we need to return back to the greater era of the 1930s, where the rich were properly, being beaten by us.
No, but seriously, and that's kind of where I don't even think I'm playing the game correctly. Panel shows are just a shit show. There's no rules to that shit anyway. But I think even down to YouTube personalities and down to Twitch personalities, there are some people who are self-aware enough to say, I'm adopting a persona. These are the ideals that I'm advocating for. Conceding any amount of like truth or reality to the other side is counterproductive to my end. Therefore, I'm just going to hammer my political positions over and over again, and any contravening evidence I will completely ignore. But that's no way to fucking live, like as a human being. Like no. So for instance, like Sargon or whatever, like literally, like in the Better Vosh debate or whatever, Vosh literally took out very carefully constructed arguments that just kind of or like even the Destiny debate where they were like fighting over the definition of a woman for like 3 hours. Like, dude, it was like, bro, like you can't even concede material reality just because it's inconvenient to your political ideology. One of two things needs to happen. You need to change your fucking political ideology, or you need to come up with a better fucking argument for why you're correct. And he was unwilling to do either one of them.
Yeah.
And that's actually what's really frustrating for me about the right, is I think the right needs to evolve. It was not okay, but it was convenient. Yeah, it was convenient for 2016 to 2018 to just say SJWs are cringe. Like 14 to 18. It was convenient to say SJWs are gross. They're out of their minds. They talk too much shit. They don't know what they're talking about. They're crazy. Well, now you have this entire new generation of like lefty YouTubers, RGR, Vosh, Sander Hall to some extent, Counterpoints, like all that kind of stuff. If the right wants to survive at all, they have to either come up with better arguments, or they need to concede. They need to concede political ground where it's actually effective. And that's kind of where I don't. That's actually where I see the YouTube space and the Twitch space probably dying for the right until they deal with that reality. Yeah.
So. I do think the right does tend to rely like way too much on like the hardcore demagoguery, and it's just like it's really frustrating to like talk to, because it's like, oh, I can't So I think here's my impression of like where like a lot of these mistakes took place. Ironically, like if you just listened to Ben Shapiro talk like 6 years ago, you would have understood everything you're dealing with right now, because he minced there's no bones about it, right? Like, I am here to make you look stupid if you're anything remotely resembling left, right? That's it. That's my whole purpose in life, is to make you look stupid, right? And if you enter the marketplace of ideas like, oh, I want to have a structured critical debate with someone who's not willing to show you any degree of charity, you will get shit on, right? And I think what a lot of those people you mentioned, particularly like the debate ones like Vosh and Destiny in particular, they'll meet you where you're at, which is something I think I do too, right? Like, I'll meet you where you're at, right? If you're and I think that's what also makes it sort of appealing, because you end up with like, oh, you can have like really in-depth, interesting conversations. But if we're going the blood sports route, like, I will annihilate you even worse than this. And it's like being able to roll those punches, right? Like, that's one of the reasons I go on this Sargon of Akkad discourse. I'm like, I haven't had just a real down in the dirt piece of shit argument in a while. I need to go neg some human beings and make myself feel better, right? Because I think I mentioned to you before, like, I used to play StarCraft with Destin when we were like 15, so I've known him for a very long time. Now that we don't really talk anymore, just incidentally or whatever, but. So we grew up in that same BattleNet internet era where, like, as good as you are at the game, you're also judged by your capacity to just shit talk people on the internet. So like, I've been doing this for a very long time, and it's just like, yeah, like, this is a part of my soul that I'm not necessarily happy about, but it's there, and
it's not going away.
Yeah, like sometimes you gotta listen. I'm just saying, sometimes you gotta feed the beast, okay? And the beast for me is going on the Sargon of Akkad Discord, going in a 1v9. And just making fun of them all relentlessly.
Yeah, and I think
whatever.
I think people from the Commonwealth call that like bant or like banter or something like that. It's basically the ability to shit talk, and like that's my thing, is like I'm so hopelessly, like endlessly naive, and ideal, where I'm just like,
you gotta be able to turn the switch on and off, okay?
We're gonna talk about these higher level ideas. Yeah. We're gonna get into descriptive reality. We're gonna talk about prescriptions. We're gonna talk about policy. We're gonna talk about history and like all that kind of shit. So when somebody walks into the fucking Twitch thing, and like they're like, hey, that's a bad take and you're a piece of shit, I'm like, what? Fuck you.
The classic Connor, like that.
Dude. I'm always trying to decide, like, is it a stroke? Is it a muscle spasm? Like, what's going on? Like, I can't figure it out. And one day we will. One day, either like this whole side of my face is gonna droop, and you're gonna be like, ah, shit, it finally happened.
Bell's palsy, like half your face stops working just because of like I don't know what caused it.
Unironically, I'm calling it now. The way, not the way that I die, but the way that I'm like injured in my 50s is in an internet debate where I just lose my shit. Like a fucking blood vessel pops behind my eye, and
you just instinctually just punch through the glass, just rip every tendon on the way back through, like you're drunk at a bar, and like you're like, oh god, why did I talk to Sargon of Akkad? Now I've lost all motion in my left arm.
Although, funnily enough, if I'm 50 and I'm like debating like a 60-year-old Sargon of Akkad, like that actually, like that sounds like okay, like just like two dementia-addled like political figures just like fucking arguing past each other. I don't know, like that sounds.
It was just slowly descend back towards his level.
As my brain rot occurs, the arguments get better.
Yeah, like my grandmother was like a mean person. She had dementia, and like towards the end, like she would just like say racist shit all the time. So I just imagine like Sargon, like his arguments, like it just involves him just like saying the N-word every third word.
Yeah,
like instead of like ums and pause words, he's just like throwing out racial slurs, just demeaning Muslims and stuff.
It's like amnesiac Tourette's.
That's just how he cognitively declines in his later years. That'd be fantastic.
I'm not going to be surprised, because that's how that man's bread and butter is made. Is just, basically not saying the quiet part out loud is how that dude makes his money. So, but that's where so I said this point like 15 minutes ago, and I'll finally get back to it because it's still in my head. So for instance, like my idealism about firearms, self-defense, the Second Amendment, all that kind of stuff, it's weird to see it weaponized by the worst possible people for the worst possible ends.
Yeah.
So for instance, like the Proud Boys or the Boogaloo Boys marching in concert with Donald Trump. That's the weirdest and dumbest thing possible. And to be honest, it's only possible because the left's optics are so fucking horrible. Now, of course, hold on.
Point of personal disagreement.
Yeah. So let's get into the personal disagreement. But to be charitable, right? They're going to call Biden a socialist no matter what, right? Like they're going to call Ilhan Omar a fucking, American hating fucking communist or whatever. But the problem is, like, seriously, this is actually a contention that I think you could probably have beef with. The problem is we'll go on like 20-minute arguments. Like seriously, like I'll talk to socialists, ANCOMs, LibSocs, whatever. We'll go on a 20-minute fucking argument about whether or not McCarthyism was real, about whether or not the Red Scare was real, whether or not communism is a problem, whether or not like communist propaganda is as bad as people say it is. And we'll do that. And then in the same breath, they'll say, or then like 20 seconds later, they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a communist and a socialist, and I think that's the ideal society, and I think we need to advocate for it. And no, I don't have any answers for how we're going to get past this authoritarianism problem. So it's like, you have to pick your lane. Either socialism is like the fear about socialism and leftism gaining a hold in popular left-wing discourse is exaggerated, and everybody's actually just a liberal. Or the paranoia and the anxiety and the fear is real. You just think that leftism and socialism and communism is correct.
Wait. So, hold on. I think I misunderstood part of that. So
okay, I'll try to say it simpler. The right wing is afraid that the left wing is becoming more actually left over time, and that the Zoomers and the millennials are more sympathetic to socialism than they would have ever dreamt possible. When you actually talk to millennials and Zoomers, it does seem socialism, however you define that.
Yeah.
Most people define that as like Scandinavian capitalism, but still. So really like social democracy. A lot of lefty advocates who are under the age of 40 are advocating for social democracy right now, and they see that as a stepping stone to socialism.
Yeah, I would probably put myself like in that category. But like when I say it's a stepping stone, it's a step towards a better world, and which would also enable us to take that next step towards what I think would be an even better world. But like these are tiny steps. So maybe I should say it's taking several steps in a given direction, and then maybe if this direction seems promising, then we keep taking more steps, right? Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
incredibly pragmatic of you, and like incremental and like all that kind of shit. Like there's plenty of people who are not pragmatic or incremental at all, and they're frustrating to talk to.
Yeah, anyone who mentions the revolution, I think they're the dumbest human beings I've ever encountered in my life. I'm just like, if there was a revolution tomorrow, you're getting the day of the rope. There should be no like listen, I'll be fine, okay? I'll just start saying like Trump is a really great guy, and like I'm white as fuck, so like they'll believe me, like it's fine.
Dude,
like,
unironically, you just said something that I wanted to laugh about, but then you said it, and I completely agree with you. Any kind of revolutionary action in the United States, if it was literally to happen this year, it'd be to the right.
Yeah,
100%.
They're like fomenting that. They're like, listen, we're gonna march. Like we were talking, and it was only half a joke, because I wouldn't be surprised if Trump was like, well, let's have a January 6th or 20th rally or whatever, like inside the White House, and just let them like turn that into the malware reserve or whatever, right? Like, dude, we were joking about that, but like, how much were we really joking? Like, he probably considers that like, fuck Biden, like. You're coming here, like I'll just let all these assholes in and just ruin this place, and you won't be able to go into the White House. You can go, run this shit from Camp David until you can clear these people out.
The only reason why that's not going to happen is because there's other adults in the room who are not going to let it happen. That's literally the only reason. If Trump was like, if he was actually dictator for a day or whatever, I think you're absolutely right. They would literally turn that into, I'm trying to think, you keep using an example that I'm unfamiliar with historically, but basically like the Romans were like sieging like a Gallic settlement or something like that. And then a whole bunch of other Gauls like came in. So they built like earthwork defenses on the outside and the inside or whatever. Like no shit. Like that's what like fucking MAGA dipshits would do. They would show up with like 6 months of MREs, a bunch of AR-15s, and fucking whatever. And they would set up like trench works in the White House lawn, and they're like, you can kick him out when you can, pry his fucking golden fucking Christian body from our cold dead fingers. And it's like, shit. Like, do we literally have a battle? Like, do we literally let the military slaughter magatards on the fucking White House steps? Is that what we do?
Listen, I just say we throw some bunker busters at that. We level the whole place. We build another White House. Okay, we call it a day. We're like, listen, they all gathered in one spot. The answer is clear.
You know what? This was built by slaves. It's time, it was burned in 1812 anyways. It's not even the original. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. The Canadians did it first. Now we'll just do it to ourselves. Let's destroy it. Well, White House 3 double electric boogaloo? How does that work?
Yeah. Oh my God, dude, that like hurts me though. Like it hurts me so bad because like I swear to God, my sympathy and my empathy is always with the people who are like,
wait, even better. So hold on. You know how like the Mar-a-Lago is supposed to be like the winter White House? We just what's the term? Eminent domain that shit, and we just nuke the second White House, and we just move it to Florida. It's fine. We just take Mar-a-Lago over. He would be so mad. Just eminent domain Mar-a-Lago if he does that.
I really wouldn't be upset about the center of American power shifting to Florida. Like,
oh God, it's already too much here. We can't wait. I think I just found this out the other day, and I was like, is there another Andrew Jackson who was the governor of Florida, or is it the same Andrew Jackson? I was like, it's the same. It was the same one.
The same, right?
It has to be.
Yeah.
Oh God,
was it like 1832 or
like
1820?
First territorial governor of Florida. I think he was just kind of appointed because I'm like, he's from Virginia, wasn't he, or something, or like the Appalachia? He's from the Carolinas.
He loved fighting in the South. I forget it exactly, but I think he also fought in like the Battle of Louisiana.
I was like, oh God, Florida's been just churning out dipshits for so long. No more power for us, please. We can't handle it.
Hey. Listen, Florida has been turning out dipshits for a really long time, but that's like, I don't know, man. Like that's part of the thing. It's like I'm never gonna rep Florida. Like Florida it's insane. But that's you just have to be honest about that. You just have to be honest that it's filled with dinosaurs and biker gangs who are high on meth. It's filled with like every cosmopolitan kind of person. It's filled with rednecks who will drop like I never thought that I would just hear the N-word used unironically in a conversation, but it was, and I was like, okay. Like it's everything. Like Florida is America whether you like it or not. The same way Walmart is America whether you like it or not. So that's like we can hold up all these like beautiful cultural achievements that we have created as Americans. But the real America is Florida, and the real America
like
is Walmart.
you're only as good as like your worst attributes, pretty much. You're defined by your weakest link. So
but you know what the problem is?
Raise everybody
our average. These are our average attributes. These aren't even our worst attributes. This is the fucking middle.
That's the George Carlin line. Like, just imagine the average person, and just know half of people they're fucking dumber than that. It's like, oh God, oh dude, no.
Isn't the average IQ 100? Like, I think it's unironic. Like, I think like average IQ is actually like a moving bar, and it's 100. So like that's.
Oh God, no,
that's tough
like
pill to
this.
swallow. Well, hold on. So I think we got past guns. Do you want to go for second one, maybe?
Hold on. I had actually.
Unless you have like a specific punch you want to go with guns, because we basically talk about YouTube personalities and.
All right, so we have to solve the Tiger King problem. Okay, that's what I'm going to affectionately call it. The Tiger King problem is. This was great because I was trying to come up with like an analogy. And a lot of them are just like too fringe, right? Like I wanted to talk about like I forgot the guy. It was one of the leaders of that like the Threepers or something, or one of the other ones. No, it wasn't him. It was one of the guys who founded like the Threepers, or the other one. I think the word Patriot's in their name. I can't remember. Whatever. Mm-hmm. I keep wanting to say Patriot Prayer, but it's not Patriot Prayer. Anyway, he's like, we need to use like we can use force, right? So the second argument is like, when you're infringing on my rights, I'm justified to use force to stop you from infringing on my rights, right? We use the example of if the Chinese government shows up there, they want to kidnap your third daughter and throw her in the ocean, you're allowed to just murder them and run away, right? And that's fine, but like that's a really easy argument. And the problem I have with a lot of like the Second Amendment stuff is like, what are your rights and like where violence is justified, and where a lot of their rhetoric seems to fall, which I think yours comes close to it because you put all the emphasis on the using guns to defend your rights, and I don't think, at least at that point, and I don't think you tend to talk about like some of the other rights as much, is like all the other things you want to do before you get to the point of needing to use guns to like solve your problems. And the example I was going to use before the Tiger King one came up and was so much better, was this was in like 2013, or no, I guess it was in like 2010 or something. They were ranting about like Obamacare, and they're like, we need to basically go kill Nancy Pelosi or something because, and like Harry Reid, because they're going to pass Obamacare, which is an infringement on our freedoms. But like, here's the thing: they use the idea of their freedoms and the Constitution as a Rorschach test for whatever the fuck they believe. Okay, they don't actually care what like facts are or like what the Constitution says or any of that. It's just whatever I feel is my right. It's my right, and if you even try and tell me that's not my right, I can use guns to kill you, and because you're taking away my rights. And for them, it was like, the ACA was an infringement on your rights, and we can use violence to attack politicians for that. And to go back to the Tiger King example, which I think is even better. Tiger King, the documentary that came out in the very beginning of the pandemic, so like, I don't know, what, 80 years ago or something. It's in the first or second episode where he's just like, if they try and come and take my tigers, it's my like God-given right to own tigers, and if you try and come and take my tigers, I'm gonna Waco your ass. Like, he said this to the local sheriff. Yeah, like, and they're like, yo, this is serious.
That's a red flag right there.
Yeah, like, he's like, yeah, it's my right to own tigers. You have no right to tell me I can't own tigers. And I feel like in American society, we're like, I think we can regulate how many tigers you can own and the condition tigers can live in. I feel like if you're feeding them, like, week-old expired bologna from Walmart, literally what he was doing, like feeding them expired meats from Walmart, if that's your mode of feeding tigers, I think we're allowed to say you ain't allowed to own tigers, right? But him, he's like, it's my right to own tigers, and it's my right to feed them bologna. If you try and tell me I can't, I'll use all these guns that I have here at my ranch with my tigers, and I will kill you. And it's like, well, that's the problem.
Sorry,
and he like ran as like a libertarian, basically.
Yeah, but see, this is where I think the government needs to say, okay, like seriously, like they just need to be like, all right, see you next week, and then fucking go and do that shit. Because like because there are, I know this is uncomfortable for anybody who started watching me as a libertarian or still identifies as a libertarian, but guess what? There's limits to freedom, and also like libertarian. Like I need to finally do an episode about fucking libertarianism, because I would have identified as a libertarian probably even shortly before I started the channel. But I just started talking to libertarians, and basically, if you're not an anarcho-capitalist, you're not a real libertarian.
That's the thing that's so frustrating. They all argue like anarcho-capitalists, basically, like any sort of regulation makes you a tyrant. And then I'm like, so you are an ANCAP? And they're like, no. And I'm like, but you're arguing like you're one. Anything I say that's talking about any sort of regulation, you neg as an authoritarian overreach. So like,
libertarian is supposed to be the smallest amount of government possible so people can live free, not no government at all, but whatever. So the label is so toxic and the ideology is so toxic that I'm just giving it to them. I'm gonna identify as a statist. No, seriously, I'm gonna identify as a statist. I'm gonna identify as maybe like a Republican in the fact that I care about the Republic, but then of course, like I have a whole bunch of lefty positions that I advocate for because I care about the people in the Republic. Weird, I know.
Yeah.
So anyways, but just to kind of get to your point, I think justified violence just needs to be accepted.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is, people should say, oh, that's horrible. He's telling the government to go fuck themselves, and he's doing completely unreasonable things. How do we resolve this peacefully without, killing the Tiger King, or having cops get killed as a result of intervening with the Tiger?
That sounds like an Age of Empires quest. Like, go kill the Tiger King.
It is, yeah. How do we capture the Tiger King without killing him? It's like the mission is like free the tigers, capture the Tiger King, but like the secondary objective is like don't kill him. If you kill him, you get less points. So but that's seriously like no shit. Like I think that's what it needs to be. And libertarians can't, like, I almost want to do like a libertarian like mission where like I talk to them about like, hey, you can say come and take it. But if you're doing crazy shit, we're gonna come and take it.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing. It's like, dude, own AR-15s, own AKs, shoot on the range, practice for the boog,
Yeah.
you know, fucking work with walkie-talkies, talk to your boys. But if you start talking about like kidnapping fucking politicians, murdering people, committing domestic terrorism, fucking owning tigers and feeding them sandwich meats and fucking like, you know, all that kind of shit. And like, it's your God-given right
Yeah.
to do fucking smoke crack cocaine while fucking shooting guns in the air in a suburb. No, it's not. And we're going to come for that ass. And that's where like, it's weird for me because like, I want to be like there's actually this weird concept. It comes from the dissident right where they say that they're the true libertarians because they believe that only in an ordered society can you have personal freedom.
Yeah.
So basically,
that sounds
like
about how they use language. So
yeah, but at the same time, there's a point there, which is basically libertarian only works if you have reasonable people who are doing reasonable things.
yeah.
If people are smoking meth, feeding you know unleashed tigers deli meats, you know keeping them in their backyard in pens, you know like breeding 5,000 different dogs and giving them all parvo and accidentally killing them and like letting them loose on the high like seriously there's some horrific shit. But like if people are acting unreasonably, then freedom is only as good as the people who are exercising that freedom.
Yeah.
And that's why laws and rules are put in place. And then that's why the government reserves some right to commit violence against those who are acting unreasonably.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we can argue about definition. We can argue about political factions. We can argue about who should hold the wheels of power and like all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, this is kind of like my not white pill, but my reality pill was I used to neatly segregate state violence and like private violence or interpersonal violence. And I never thought of state violence as violence. Like I never thought of it as like a cop, like arresting somebody as violence. I never thought of, you know, the military doing it. I did think of the military as violent, but like, you know, it's justified or whatever. It's in a different moral category. I still think that it's in a different moral category, but we need to acknowledge that it's violence and we need to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Like all society and all politics is force. It's a degree of acceptable force. Where were you willing to use force? I think that's sort of like the crux of like what I was getting here. Admittedly, like I said, this was sort of a dated critique, but I figured it would be kind of like a fun conversation anyway, because I think this was more of an issue with like your earlier content and the videos I catch nowadays. I don't really feel like you ever really like you don't harp on guns in like the same way that you did when you were probably like more libertarian.
You know what's funny is I've shifted a little bit too. So like legislatively, I still haven't really changed, and my sympathies and my empathies are the same. But also like even my definition. So for instance, like the Second Amendment is in case, you know, the government becomes tyrannical, you can take them on maybe not an even footing, but you can take them on and you can make them pay, right? Well, in an insurgency, 76 million people armed with bolt action rifles after an assault weapons ban. Can they affect the government?
Yeah.
Can they, you know, can they balance power? Can they like protect some rights and liberties for the people if the government is abusing it? Yeah, like 76 million people is a lot of people with guns. So even if it's like the most arcane, like even if it was like black powder fucking muskets, 76 million people could still give like the most armed military on the planet a run for their money.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where
I mean, like we're still fighting insurgents in like Iraq and Afghanistan like 20 years later. Like you get that's why I never really like the critique of like, well, the U.S. military on our home front. It's like, first of all, you're talking about the like we're able to fight those wars overseas because like we're stable on the home front. You're talking about fighting a war like, yeah, sure, they'll have like probably better domestic surveillance than they do maybe in like than when we're in a foreign country. But like you also have like the complete economic breakdown of fighting a war in your own country. Like there are so many compounding things here. I'm just like I don't buy like the lefty. I don't even know. I'll say lefty that you can't do.
Whenever somebody mentions how does a gorilla take on an aircraft carrier, you don't fuckstick. How do you take on a nuke? You don't. Well, I think is the United States going to nuke an American city? Get the fuck out of here. Like,
yeah, I think
they accuse me of being fantastical for thinking that like guerrilla warfare exists and is possible.
It's literally happening right now.
Like,
we're losing.
How much,
or at least not winning.
Okay, America loses popular support by its tax base when we accidentally blow up a hospital that local people called in an airstrike on.
Yeah.
How much popular support do you think the federal government is going to lose after it glasses an American city? Like, get the fuck out of here. So anyways, that's
I think
try not to stroke out a
it
little
was
bit.
it was
Oh,
your it was
Jesus.
your it was a quote by you actually where you're like I think you were I don't remember who you were talking to, but you're like, yeah, like you don't go and just do like the old like I don't know, like the Revolutionary War, like old English way where we stand on a line and get ran over by a tank like Tiananmen Square. You're like, no, you kill a soldier while he's taking a shit. Like that's what you do. And then you run away into the woods. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you do. Like live to fight another day. Don't stand there and get ran over by a tank in Tiananmen Square. Go kill a federal. Sorry. We're gonna post this. I shouldn't say stuff like that. Contextually, like I'm saying, that's how you do it.
All in the context of a brutal American civil war.
It's like this is how guerrilla warfare would work, right? You just like like they did in the Revolutionary War. Literally, you just jump a whole bunch of British soldiers, then you run into the woods. And they're like, well, we just lost 10 people, like, and then you just keep trekking through like some cold area, and then you die in the elements, and you get shot again. And
if I wasn't a veteran. And I was just some guy saying these things. Like I would get it, but the people who are like confidently asserting that guerrilla warfare doesn't exist or doesn't work are like people who just like I don't know, dude. It's like have you read a Wikipedia article about like Afghanistan or Iraq?
Yeah.
Like are you minutely aware of world events for the past like 30 years, and it's so frustrating.
Like the Spanish-American War or something, about how like people think like the Americans just we crushed Spain over the course of like 3 months, like we topped this how we made our preeminence into the world. And it's like, you know what's funny, how long the Spanish-American War lasted really depends on who you ask. If you ask an American, they're going to say like, what was it, like 3 or 6 months? If you ask a Filipino, they're going to say it was like 20 years. You know why? Because they were fighting that shit in guerrilla warfare for 20 years. Just completely demoralizing and killing Spanish people in the Philippines, in Cuba, in a third country I'm forgetting. Is it Guam? I don't...
Yeah, Guam, Philippines. Yeah, no,
it's Puerto Rico. I was going with Puerto Rico. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, and dude, that I don't know. That's like my thing. It's like, people have been giving me positive and negative attention for like my panel debates or whatever because I get so mad so easily. But it's like, dude, I'm not faking my anger. Like I am genuinely angry, and it's seriously, it has nothing. It barely has anything to do with the point. Okay, like if you told me a point that I disagreed with, and I disagreed with it, we can have a conversation. Like we can talk that out. Like that's not the problem. The problem is being smugly and confidently wrong while accepting no new information. That's like, dude, I can't think of a faster way to lose my shit on somebody is if they fucking make an assertion about reality and I'm like, okay, I understand. Here's a little bit more context for your information. So maybe if we still don't agree, your worldview is slightly expanded. And they're like, no, fuck you. I reject this information and you're a bad person. It's like, okay, now I'm going to fucking lose it. Like now we're fucking... Oof.
See, that's where you got to flip the switch and you just start trolling them. Like you tell them to sit on... What'd you tell that one person? You told them to sit on a rake or something? Or
it's
fuck by a fence post or something?
Fucking doobie.
What an odd person. I guess we'll round up this section. I'll just say, like, I think if you try and reach out to libertarians, I think like your rhetoric around the Second Amendment is something they're all going to like flock to, and I think the way you can try and make them like more reasonable, which is like sort of because I looked at your content, I'm like I could see how someone could listen to this, it could reaffirm those like those hardcore like anarcho like sort of views, and then they can go from that to like some boogaloo shit, where they're just like they can adopt the Tiger King mentality, we'll call it. And I can see how with the earlier content you can go from that, but I doubt so much anymore. And if you do try and reach out to them, I think talking about those gun rights and then making sure you back end them with like what needs to come before that to make sure that when you use that violence that you're on the right and you're not just like killing a cop for giving you a sovereign citizen like a speeding ticket or something.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good way to punch right too, because like the thing is I keep doing lefty debate shows, so I end up fucking punching left. In order to punch right too, I think I need to think about how libertarianism and authoritarianism don't even seem to matter anymore. Like libertarians are unironically supporting authoritarianism in order to help their side. It's so weird.
I'll say that's probably a conversation for another time, maybe, because I think you said something earlier that made me like think like, oh, we're gonna have a disagreement here about like I think part of that is, I guess I'll quickly try and say it is like if you think you're adopting the tenets of libertarianism and you're not in, like, that's sort of the problem where you're reading like the text of it and you'll get one idea from it, right? Like I was the right-wing libertarian when I was younger, and that like making yourself more free was something that like reached out to me because I'm from like New York or whatever, so I wasn't like, I didn't grow up in like really like far right environments. So the idea of like more freedom for more people, hell yeah. And that has actually never changed about me. The only thing that's changed is my conception of how we materialize more freedom for more people. So like that core has never changed. Just the way that I think we can manifest that has changed. And a lot of like the libertarians, I don't think like the people who self-identify as libertarian, particularly when they tend to be like aligning with that like far right fringes or whatever, it's because like you hear the words and you don't understand like the underlying dog whistle, for lack of a better word, that they're actually being reached on.
There's definitional differences in interpretation too that I find utterly fascinating. Because I'll try to be brief, but basically you could say people should be more free. And a European will agree with you, and an American will agree with you. But what a European means by freedom is that they can work a reasonable job, they get paid a fair wage, they have maternity and paternity leave so they can actually enjoy their family, they can actually afford the vacations and they go on vacations with their family, and their entire life is not working 70 hours a week for some other asshole, basically until they die. That's what a European means by freedom.
Yeah.
When you talk to an American about freedom, it means I get to shoot guns and fireworks in my backyard. I can maybe not do illicit drugs, but let's face it, drug culture in America is kind of wrapped into the freedom thing. Nobody can tell me how to live, and basically it doesn't matter if I'm working 70 hours a week at a job I hate because the government isn't fucking with me. And that's kind of where like I think there's a real definitional issue where we have to address the fact that like people are really like they have that rise and grind mentality, which I love. I love the rise and grind mentality, but it's being exploited with no payoff.
Yeah.
Like I have no problem with the Protestant work ethic. I have no problem with the work ethic in general. I have no problem with considering yourself a disciplined person. I have no problems with personal improvement. I have no problems pursuing your individual goals or even applying a rise and grind mentality to entrepreneurship. I think that's fundamentally American, and I fucking love it. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want rise and grind mentality to be propaganda to get you to work 70 hours a week at fucking 7-Eleven, where your options for the fucking weekend are eating food or drinking with your friends with no health care. Yeah. No health care, barely able to pay your fucking bills. That's not life.
It's like if you took that American work ethic to Europe, you'd be a millionaire before you're 30. Like the way it's like instilled upon us, right? But it's like the opportunities just like aren't here for you to like really actualize on that and then the pay or whatever.
Unless you want to become a corporate stooge. And that's the thing. That's the other thing too, is we don't understand, because like I've worked in the retail world, I've worked in the corporate world as well. Wealth is available to Americans who sell their soul.
Yeah.
So you join an institution, you work your ass off, but everybody else is working their ass off too. Not only do you work your ass off, you drink the corporate Kool-Aid to the point that you get promoted into corporate, and then you turn around and you sell the Kool-Aid to everybody else, and that's how you get into the upper echelons of like American prosperity, unless you're a very technically skilled person.
I was gonna say I had like one more like elaboration on that, and then I'll let you like finish off. Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, that's it. That's it. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
There's a book called, I think it's The Meritocracy Trap. I just started reading it, and they made like, I like books where like you get like this one, like it's almost like a turn of phrase type thing where they give you like one thing that's like paradigm shifting in like how you think about stuff. And there's a whole bunch of books I've read where like they have that like one paragraph or that one like thing, and you're like, how did I not realize this? How did they put this in, or how did they put this in such a concise way? Like, oh, it hurts my brain that I didn't think of this. Like it upsets me because like it's so concise. And the observation this person made is that the meritocracy that we like embrace in American culture hurts everybody. It hurts the people at the top and the people at the bottom. Because formerly, if you were like in that aristocracy, your life was defined by your leisure, the things you didn't do. But now people who like actually you see this reflected, like, and a lot of lefties will say like, oh, like the people at the capitalists, like, and the people with all the money, they aren't doing anything. It's like, well, that's actually not true. It was like 100 years ago, it was true, where they would just be sitting there, they'd literally be fat cats, you know, they're just socialites and going to parties, and they literally don't work. They just have like inherited, they just don't do anything. That was the upper class of society. But now it's like, if you're trying to enter, particularly like if you work your way into it through, like, you go to like Harvard, you know, you're from a rich family, you go to Harvard, you end up getting a job where you work 90 hours a week or 100 hours a week, or you go to like a top tier law firm, and for the first 5 years of that law firm, you're expected to work 90 hours a week, 6 days a week or something. And it's like, wait, this is upper class? Working my bones off? And it's like, yeah, you're going to be getting like a fat check of like $300K as a corporate lawyer or something, leaving Harvard.
Yeah, but they're gonna make you fucking earn that shit.
But you lose your soul through it, and it's like, wait, like these two types of upper class are very different, and so the meritocracy hurts people on both sides of it in different ways, but both people are being hurt by it. And I'm just like when you point that out, like, oh yeah, like you do have this image of people just sitting around doing nothing, and it's hard to mesh that with like the current like, you know, a corporate lawyer who works 100 hours a week, making lots and lots of money, like 300, 500K a year, but it's like, well, what are they doing with that money? Like, okay, they go
driving a Maserati to your office. Yeah, driving a Maserati to your office to stare at a screen for 80 hours a week. Get the fuck out of here.
Over 3 years, you get 300 miles on the thing because you just never go anywhere except the office or whatever.
Dude, and that's my thing. Like so, but there are dynastic families, like the Johnson & Johnson family is one that comes to mind, or the Walton family or whatever. But oftentimes dynastic wealth doesn't stay in that family because the fucking kids don't know how to do what the parents did.
Yeah.
So oftentimes they'll fuck that shit up, and the only reason why they will remain wealthy is by not touching their money and letting smarter, other hardworking people work their asses off to maintain their wealth through investment. So that's not to fucking, you know, vilify, or I mean, maybe it is to vilify a little bit, but it's not to say good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But at the same time, it's like, dude, I like even posting in a right wing group, posting the most milquetoast meme where it's like, where it's just like, hey guys, I love working hard, but at the same time, just because the government isn't your friend doesn't mean your boss is. There's more to life. You need to spend time with your friends. You need to spend time with your family. You need to spend time with your parents. You need to do other things besides work, shit, and sleep. And literally, there is a reflexive rejection of even the mention of enjoying family and having a work-life balance. That's borderline sad to me. Like I really feel like the right, if you want to call it the right, it's like this worship of work, which I think is okay to a certain extent. Literally Tucker Carlson, so you know I'm a crypto fascist. He said, I don't worship capitalism, I worship God. And the right has completely lost that. They've completely lost that. They worship capitalism. They worship money. They worship the mythos of American wealth. They don't worship principle. They don't worship any other principle except for like Darwinian capitalist American exceptionalism. And frankly, like I'm goddamn sick of it because it's literally it's a toxin. I have so many beefs with the left over what I think their solutions are, but there are so many descriptive parts of reality that are 100% accurate, which is basically that we are being fed a bill of goods as working class and middle class Americans to not even live our lives because we're breaking a propagandized ethic.
Yeah, have you ever heard the term fusionism?
No, but I'm worried.
Yeah, it answers your question for how the right became that way.
Yeah.
Here, I'll throw it in here.
What neoconservative and
basically
neoconservative?
Mm-hmm. It's basically like basically libertarians and conservatives like had a baby and it was Ronald Reagan and it just fucked everything up.
I 100% believe that.
Yeah,
100%.
But the movement itself is interesting, and seeing like it's almost like it was two separate groups, like at the origins of it, like from fusions, we had like the people who were libertarians and hated they were kind of unified by like fuck. Okay, whatever. I'll just do this quick.
Yeah.
They were unified by their hatred of like communism because like religious people were like, oh, that's a secular evil state, and then the capitalists were like, well, fuck that. They what's it called? They don't want us to exist because capitalism. I mean, ignoring that they had like oligarchs and whatever, but what? And so they unified under that, and they both made concessions, right? The libertarians, you know, keep in mind the modern like libertarian party is more or less descended from like, fuck slavery, right? We're gonna go civil war over this shit. You don't have the right to enslave it. Like that was the Republican Party. Emphasis on was, right? And they sort of gave up that civil libertarian streak and bowed to like conservatives, like social policy, and the conservatives who wanted an economy orientated around the family gave that up, and they
gave up the best parts of yourself.
They both
best parts.
Oh, they both gave up the best part of them to embrace the other one's shitty side, and I'm just like, fucking. Imagine if that happened the other way around.
Dude, this is the power of hatred of the left. Like seriously, this is the power.
That's
of
what it was. It was fear politics drive like that formed that coalition party, or that now is the Republican Party. And you used to have those two distinct groups, but now they're one group. Like you used to talk to someone who had a libertarian or conservative leaning. If you talk to old people, you'll still get this sometimes because they came up in an era where those were distinct groups. But if you talk to modern conservatives, like particularly younger people, like I don't know, we'll say under 40, they're just one person with this syncretistic ideology like implanted upon them. And it's
low taxes, fuck anybody who can't fend for themselves. The military-industrial complex is awesome. Israel is awesome. Yeah. Foreign intervention is awesome. Jihadism bad, communism bad, socialism bad, Bernie bad, taxes bad, AOC bad, but we like her boobies. Like it's seriously like that's it.
Yeah.
So dude, it's so mind-bogglingly, whatever that word is, terrible. But that's where I'm hopeful to like kind of propagandize, not my like own wing or whatever, but kind of like show people that you can have right-wing sympathies and conservative sympathies, and you can care about family and the free market or the market, even if it's not free. You can care about, but you can also care about other things. You can care about environmentalism. You can care about the planet. You can care, like Teddy Roosevelt was a fucking Republican, but he, apparently a progressive Republican or some shit. Like Nixon was the one who created the EPA. Just because you're a capitalist doesn't mean you have to want to destroy the environment. Just because you want capitalism to continue to exist doesn't mean that you should think that basically like slashing everybody's fucking wages, no benefits from everybody, and if you're fucking dumb, then you deserve to be a slave. That's not the same thing as fucking, basically believing in the power of the market. And there's so many other fucking things, but that's kind of where I just want to start fucking, obviously I'm still going to punch left, but that's also where I want to create something new or something old on the right, where it's like you don't have to be this weird Machiavellian corporate monster of fucking contradictory and dickish opinions. Like you can sort your own way out.
The most cucked position of them all.
Dude, seriously, and that's the thing. It's like, dude, so your options in your options in conservative circles are one of two things right now. It's literally TPUSA, so social liberalism and fiscal conservatism, which makes no fucking sense because you're literally like, you're basically adopting all of the liberal fucking principles that you supposedly fight fucking against, and then you're just giving tax breaks to rich people. It's fucking nothing. It's a hollow ideology. Meanwhile, like maintaining like a few like jabs towards social justice warriors, so you ostensibly can be against modern liberal progressives. And then your other option is America First, which is like, it's just neoconservatism, or not even neo. It's paleoconservatism on fucking steroids because it's crypto fascism. So it's literally like it's fucking that's all it is.
Even the name, the America First Committee, ring any bells?
Was it like just unironically the American fascist movement?
Yeah, literally was.
So that's where it's like, they're going to dress it up in this, oh, well, we just care about immigration and we're sick, we're isolationist and we're actually peaceful and like all this kind of bullshit. But what was really funny is we have a dissident right guy in the Discord who I like a lot. But he was like, oh, like I hung out with the America Firsters, and turns out that they're just fucking Nazis. And it's like,
Oh,
yeah, when they're just asking questions about the Jews, like, get into a private message and see what they really think about the Jews. And it's whatever. Anyways, so we jumped all over, but I think it was good.
Last angle on that. Then we're moving to wait. Do you have to go or
no?
Okay.
I don't have to go anywhere. Normally I try to stick to 90 minutes, and we're at an hour 23. But for you, I'll happily stay for 2 hours.
Okay, well, we'll have to do the defund the police thing quickly. But it's okay. I'll try and lay it out organized.
Dude, I have more time. We don't have to take 8 months to fucking do this shit.
Fair
it's
enough.
Just yeah.
It reminds me, I think we talked roughly about like distributists one time. For the uninformed who are watching, he's some like trad Catholic, conservative, dissident right person. That's the correct term, right? Dissident right for him, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Dissident right is like it's not alt-right. It's the new catch-all term that they're all fucking using. But there's literally two people: Wignats, which is just like neo-Nazis, and then what do you call it? I call them Chrisnats. So basically Christian nationalists who have a different motivation for not liking Jews. And then there's different levels of racism with different groups.
Yeah. The quick little anecdote there was I was arguing with him and some other person who circles his sphere of influence, like on Twitter. And Twitter, I'm so happy I got banned off Twitter, sort of, because like what a waste of my fucking life. But and what's funny, actually, fuck, I'll go back to that derail in a second. But what it was, he got mad that I inferred. I didn't even directly say, because I don't usually call people racist, because it's not really productive for conversations. Like, unless I actually don't really even call people that much. Like, I will describe to you someone whom I think is racist, but I'll never call someone racist in a conversation or a fascist. But I will talk about these things to people who I think the conversation is interesting. So I kind of inferred that this person like we were talking to was racist. He goes, "How dare you like personally attack him using these magic words of racism?" And I was like, "All right, whatever." And then it gets better. So I went to DMs with like the other guy. And within like 5 messages, he's just owning like race realism, and I'm just like, why were you mad at me then? You literally are like the definition of race. There's distinct racial differences, like IQ and shit differences among these groups. And when I'm like, okay, well, I tried like to lightly push back. I'm like, well, there's this interesting book called like, Mismeasured Man you can read, and like gives you a counterpoint to like stuff like the bell curve. And he's like, oh, that guy's a hack. I'm like, all right, I'm done with this conversation. I don't fucking care.
Yeah. Well, in the reason why they say that unironically is because they view it as just like a pejorative to dismiss the conversation, but then they are literally the thing accurately. Yeah. Like, see, that was one of the not frustrating things, but kind of the illuminating things about actually traveling in dissident right circles for a while, and just like trying to understand what was going on. Was they're not racist in the Ku Klux Klan like exaggerated way. They're literally racist in the way they define racism is. Races are real. They're hard lines. There's difference between those races that can be quantified. And there are areas of quantifiable traits that can be measured as positive and negative. And we just happen to be in our racial category, which is good for us. So then it can kind of get into like racial separatism, and like they'll never acknowledge supremacy, while simultaneously being completely against miscegenation or mixing the races, completely, just talking shit about brown and black people and Jewish people all the time.
Yeah.
And then the only positive things they have to say about a different race are Asians, because Asian people are better at being humans than fucking white people. That's literally it. So it's still.
I'm not racist, because I think Asians are good.
Dude, it's still definitely racism, but it's just like.
Were the Nazis like the Japanese or Asian Aryans basically? Like they're like, oh, they're the good, yeah. So this isn't even like new necessarily. They're just repackaging a thing again, like they want to do.
Dude, it's so frustrating, and like seriously, like we could probably tangent even harder, but like history is seriously like it's one of the biggest cures to a lot of this ideological possession. It's the cures to like a lot of like, like racism or like racial superiority or historical superiority or like these grand narratives or anything like that. Learning the history of not just your culture, but like your genetic lineage or learning the history of other people's lineages and their cultures, it's the fastest way to figure out that you're being manipulated by a shitload of ideologies that want your energy in order to perpetuate, and what they're telling you has nothing to do with reality. Like it has nothing to do with historical reality. They're giving you a narrative to harness your personal
that's why we gotta abolish what's it called, the 1619 project and whatever, because they're teaching un-American history. Okay. Oh,
sure.
I screen shared you what I was banned for on Twitter, and I'm refusing to cancel my appeal on it. I think you'll appreciate the irony just by looking at it.
Yeah, hold on.
Notice it's me getting mass flagged by Count Dankula fans for calling him a cunt twice. the irony of getting mass flagged by Count Dankula fans to get me like kicked off Twitter. I was like, I can live with this. This is my favorite. This is top tier.
Good for you for escaping.
I don't
Twitter.
care. Fuck that place. I will never cancel that appeal. I'll stay banned until they whatever. I don't care. What's funny is it doesn't even look like I'm banned. You can still go on my like thing, and it's just like it looks like my account's still there, but it's like, oh, it's like you're time limited from posting until you agree to remove this. But it's actually already removed too, so no one can even see that post. Yeah. It's just a war between me and like a Twitter automatic feature that's not letting me post. It's just literally fighting against the machine for no reason.
I was about to say my bet is on the robots to win this war.
Yeah, I think they have more endurance than me.
Yeah, probably. So but no, good for you for escaping Twitter. Like I hated Twitter for a really long time, and then I got on and I started following some really funny people. And now I enjoy it. Now I just post memes. So it's actually really fun for me. But it's toxic, like just rage fuel for your brain. So it's awful. But I'm addicted to it just like everybody else.
Yeah. So. Let's see. Okay, we're moving to defund the police. That's my segue, where there's no segue. It's me just saying, before I get distracted again. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to try and summarize what I think is your position, or I'm gonna give like an outline of what I think your position is, and feel free to fill in any holes where you think I'm not saying it accurately. So, you think defunding the police would be bad because if we just took money away before having parallel structures implemented, that we would see, more crime, more harm, more bad things happen, that we need to build up these structures first, and then we can defund the police as necessary once these parallel structures take over. Is that about correct? Any additions you want to make to that?
100%. And I'm not even convinced that defunding specifically is a good idea. There's all these things for instance, like when we talk about defund the police in a steelman kind of way, mm-hmm. It's taking responsibilities away from police and creating or enabling institutions that are better suited for those purposes to take over those roles. Mm-hmm. Just because that occurs doesn't mean that I think the actual purpose of law enforcement would disappear, but we can talk about that.
Okay. I have like three branches for this argument, so clearly we don't have enough time to do all of them. So we'll see where we go from here. So I'm gonna call you a hypocrite, okay? And we're gonna go for the hypocrite argument first. So one of your major concerns for defunding the police without setting up parallel structures first is the short-term harm that we would see from just let's say removing cops off the street or something, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that's the price we pay for freedom, similar to your gun argument, right? In the short term, I don't care if we have an increase in the murder rate by 10% or whatever for 2 years while we set up these parallel structures. If it leads to a greater just society down the line, I don't see why you can really have a problem with that, unless you disagree with the outcome of it and having a net utilitarian gain.
Yeah. So, hold on. Do you want me to address this, or do you want to go to the next point?
Well, you can address that.
Okay. So I'm not convinced. Okay. So hold on. So I kind of foreshadowed my response. I'm not convinced that so for instance, if you ended the drug war, okay, you adopt the Portuguese model, cops are now just giving people citations or references to fucking rehab clinics or whatever. That doesn't mean that there's not shit to be done. Okay, there's plenty of shit to be done by police. Traffic enforcement being one of them that actually saves lives, even though everybody hates it, including me. Basically that. Enforcing security, patrolling, all that kind of stuff. I'm a very passionate advocate for patrol. And actually, socialism done left fucked up by giving me a study in which
Oh no.
community-oriented policing. There was a community-oriented policing grant where it enabled qualifying departments to specifically hire more police officers as long as they were engaged in like community shit.
Oh, I'm gonna
Like community.
specifically complain about that. That's on the to-do list. That doesn't mean what you
Okay,
think
all
it
right.
means, sir.
Okay, hold on. But basically, what they saw was for every cop that was actually hired through the grant program,
Mm.
for every one cop that was hired, there was a 1.63% reduction in crime.
Hmm.
So that's actually where just to shove the efficacy argument up its fucking ass or whatever. Like cops don't have to be arresting junkies
Hmm.
in order to be improving society. There's plenty of other very real law enforcement functions. So to even say that you need to eliminate or get rid of the fucking institution, like I don't know why. And then finally, just to wait, hold on. You were saying parallel structures or whatever. Yeah, that was all under the assumption that we're gonna defund anyways. But like, I'm not convinced that defund is necessary or even smart. Like, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're someone who wants to like rebel against the government, I think part of that should involve making sure it's relatively easy to rebel against your government. When you have officers running around in like literally surplus military gear with tanks, armored personnel carriers, and all this shit with what's it called? I'm trying to learn more about guns. I'm not one of those people, but like a 50 cal sniper rifle that's an anti tank / anti personnel rifle. It's kind of like. Do we want them to have all that?
Well, yeah, but that's kind of my thing. If you're going up against Tiger King, as we discussed earlier, then you're gonna need that shit because he's got fucking AKs and Barrett 50 cals and all that kind of shit. So
But your small local police department with like 50 sworn officers doesn't need that. You can have like the FBI who can have equipment like that, or you could like I don't have an issue with like the local like. Or every police officer, for example, like, well, let's talk about like the North Hollywood shootout or something, right? That's a good example. For those not familiar, quickly, North Hollywood shootout was a bank robbery that happened like, I don't know, 30 years ago, 35 years ago or something, maybe less. I think it was in like the mid-90s. So whatever that works out to.
I think.
Yeah.
92.
And basically these were two like crazy dudes, and they had AK-47s with like 200 round barrels with armor piercing rounds, and they were like head to toe basic, well, not toe actually, head to knee in I knew you'd get that one. They were basically head to knee in like Kevlar, like armor. So the cops were trying to shoot them, and the bullets were just bouncing off them because they only had small arms and shotguns and stuff. And
yeah, they literally had to go to the local gun store to be loaned like mini 14 rifles because like that was the only thing that was local that might penetrate the armor that those guys were wearing. And I think it was like a 2-hour shootout where these guys were just walking back and forth, just mag dumping into the parking lot. I think surprisingly not that many people died. I think it
literally just the shooters died. Just the shooters.
Yeah.
No one else died.
Yeah.
Which is the craziest thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and although it was literally like they mag dumped into a parking lot for like 2 hours. So it's
in Los Angeles, like this is not, they're not in the middle of like, Fargo, North Dakota or whatever. They're in northern LA. It's pretty crazy.
Okay, so if you were to say,
sorry, my point is they should have, every cop should have like an AR-15. Like even like the police department I work at, a very small police department. Every single cop has an AR-15 along with like their thing. So on the off chance like we had some person with body armor roll up at a building, like we have every single cop has the firepower. I don't mind giving each cop like an AR-15 to have in their car, like whatever, it's fine. And you could use that to contain situations or do stuff while waiting for maybe some localized like regionalized SWAT team, not like the 80-man police department with a bunch of jackasses who like just who still wear their high school Letterman jacket on weekends, who are on the SWAT team.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something. The FBI SWAT team, they're still the same. They're just smarter douchebags who still wear their letter jackets on weekends.
Well, yeah, but if you're pulling from a pool of like 12,000 officers or something, like if you're the NYPD and you have 20,000-30,000 sworn officers, your pool for who you can select for this group of people is wide. You can get the people who like I serve in the military and I'm just like here, like, just here to do my time, who aren't super gung-ho, versus the people who signed up to be a cop because they're like, I saw this cool police promotional video and it showed me rappelling off of a building, breaking into some drug den, and that's what I'm about. Versus like that, because like where I used to live in New York, we only had like 100-person police department, like sworn officers, and like they had a SWAT team, they had an APC, they had all this shit, and like they were so eager to just use it on random, like Literally, I lived in like the second. It's okay. I'll just say it. It's Rockland County, New York. You guys can look it up. It's one of the safest places in the whole goddamn country. And we had the second highest paid police department in the country. And it's just a bunch of like lawyers and doctors who live like largely in that county. And these guys are running around doing like, you know, armed drug raids, just breaking into house. They literally broke into my house for a drug raid. Yeah, my brother was like a weed dealer. These dudes run into my house armed, just having the time of their life with their stupid drug dog. Broke every door in the house for no reason at all. And I'm just like, what are you people fucking doing?
He's a Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's like, okay, dude, like, whatever.
So I had so
just so clouded.
Those SWAT guys or whatever, you know, they were so proud when they busted a house in Mount Dora, and they come in with like 10 pounds of marijuana, and they come in with like a single action revolver and a lever action 45-70, and they're like, look, we got guns and drugs. And it's like, motherfucker, this is like a collection piece, and like, you just got him on a felony. He can't own that shit anymore. That's probably his grandpa's fucking hunting rifle, and you just took that shit from him. Fuck you. You're proud of that shit. But anyways, so point being, it's not the job. It's not the job, and it's not the people, okay? Like, it's how you use that shit. Seriously, like, this kind of fucks me up a little bit. You don't get to choose the people who do the fucking job. You're trying to like legislate. No, you're trying to legislate assholes out of jobs, and there's assholes in every job. Well, you're probably the asshole at your job. So,
I'm definitely an asshole.
Right. So they would come up for
goes to the break room and deletes Fox News type of guy.
Lefty, progressive people shouldn't work at your job. Yeah. But anyways, so point being that, like, yeah, you're right. The APC doesn't need to be used that much. But what that needs to
and that's a waste of money to maintain an APC year over year.
Once it's bought, it's not that big of a deal. So, and on top of that, if it like, seriously, this is the other thing that's frustrating for me. If they had a fucking like 40 mil, like a minigun on top, or like a grenade launcher or something like that, then I'd be concerned. But all an APC is, or a Lenco Bearcat is, it's literally it's a bullet resistant truck. That's all it is. It doesn't do anything. It looks scary, but if you shoot at it, bullets don't go through. It doesn't do shit.
Well, so like that's where that's the point. We don't need literally military things brought here from, like, oh, we just got this back from Iraq. We'll just why don't we need it? Well, because you can have just like a retrofitted Brinks truck, which is cheaper, not a militarized thing, and clearly like serves that purpose. Like,
yeah, but okay, but this is also where we kind of get you're almost arguing like a principle and a cost perspective. But here's the thing: the MRAPs are already purchased.
I don't care. Throw them away. Throw them in a junkyard. Doesn't matter.
But see, that's like dumb to me, because they're literally but
there's maintenance costs to this stuff. Like there's no way. So I don't know it. Wait. So the maintenance costs between these two things, I very much doubt are comparable. You're talking about military grade equipment that probably has like all this specialty shit. If our goal is to just not get like, you know, bullets going through it, a Brinks truck will do the trick, right? And those things are very widely accessible.
A Lenco Bearcat is like $400K. And a Lenco Bearcat is like two Ford F-350s slammed on top of each other and then armored. That's all it is. So when you're talking about the Brinks truck, the Lenco Bearcat, which is like the big scary looking thing, that's basically what it is.
I had trouble pulling up maintenance costs on these things. And they do get them for free from the surplus to 1044 program. What do you mean? Like, that's so a lot of times they're getting these things when they don't need them, right? If you're in a county where you're just doing random drug raids.
Hold on. Let's qualify need. Okay, let's qualify need. So SWAT. So SWAT is going to be called out specifically for high risk events.
No.
Okay.
I disagree. Disagree with premise.
Okay. Hold on. SWAT should only be called for high risk events.
Hey, but when you got a hammer, everything looks like a fucking nail, buddy.
Okay, but that's the problem, not the hammer.
Well, yeah, but you don't need a SWAT team to serve drug warrants.
Depends on the drug warrant, right? If you're going to, okay, I don't even care. After decriminalization, if you're going after a fucking drug cartel, you're going in with armor and guns.
Okay, we're not. They don't go after. Okay, the local SWAT team is not going after drug cartels.
How do you define cartel?
Well, I assume you mean like them loaded up with like AK. Well, I'm thinking like Mexican cartel type situation, not like local drug dealer in a house.
You can catch a fucking 9mm to the eye from a fucking shitty local banger.
Well,
Like
it's gonna be
what?
really hard when only like 10% of SWAT raids they actually find guns when they do the raids.
Do you want to be the person going into the fucking raid the 10% of the time where there is a gun?
Yes. Why
No,
not?
you don't.
Yeah, why
Shut the
not?
fuck up. You're so full of shit.
Well,
You're so
sign up for a job, accept the level of risk that comes with the job to serve your community. You know, commit to
So
your community.
why do I have to roll up in a soft vehicle with soft armor because you say I don't need it? You don't even do the job. And you're saying 10% is an acceptable level of risk for me.
No, 10% is where a gun is found. Wait, 10% is where a gun was found, not where a gun was used in references. And more cops more cops get injured because of this. They don't use it in the high risk scenarios. The high risk scenarios, you know what they do? They do police work, right? Oh, like for example, like one of the examples in that book I recommended to you is one of the most high-risk things you can imagine. I think it's Whitey Bulger, former crime boss or whatever, who's on the run for decades, is 80 years old. Any sentence he gets is a death sentence. This is someone who, you know, very violent, killed 20-plus people. He will fight you for it. You know what they did instead? They found out he had a what's it called? A storage unit. They faked a call to him saying, hey, someone broke into your storage unit. They arrested him without incident when he went there to go check on what was stolen from his storage unit. Instead of like when we're in these situations, they're like, oh, it's just going to be fun to go raid a poker room or raid a drug house or raid all these things because it's literally just fun to throw on your SWAT gear, you know, play paintball basically, but with real weapons going to real places.
No. One, this is super straw manny. Two,
I know it sounds straw manny, but it's not.
You're talking about a tactical change that I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a tactical change I agree with. If you have warrants for somebody. If you can arrest somebody who's like violent or shitty or whatever, hit them where they don't expect it.
Yeah.
Don't hit them at a house. Why are you hitting them at a house? They have guns there. Why are you hitting them? You know, like don't hit them in a car. They're gonna run. They can hurt or kill people. Literally hit them when they're fucking going to the grocery store. Hit them when they're fucking they're going to the auto zone or some shit. But at the same time, this is the real problem because you and I agree with that.
Yes.
Because there's less chance of people actually getting hurt or killed. There's less chance of an armed confrontation resulting in death because you're catching them when they're off guard. And on top of that, by using like undercover people, you could probably get up on him before he even knew that you were there, and you could snatch him in public and arrest him there. It's so much smarter. It's so much safer for everybody involved. But the reason why they don't do that isn't because it's not smart. It's because they don't involve the public. Because what happens if that, like before the arrest, that guy pulls a gun and he gets shot in front of a crowd of people in the auto zone? What happens if he pulls and takes a hostage? What happens if he fucking, shoots a cop in the fucking auto zone? Well, that's why. It's to fucking save, frankly,
but let's look on the other side of this,
from the reality of society. Like, that's what it is. It's to protect society
that's
from the
not a
fucking
realistic
drug.
threat. But what is an actual realistic threat is cops breaking into the houses in the middle of nights and then getting shot because people think, oh shit, my house is getting broken into. Yeah, because they're taking a less safe course of action because it's fun for them.
No.
Because it's fun for them.
You keep insinuating that this is some like SWAT teams are just like they're making this decision unilaterally. These decisions are made by city councils. These decisions are made by city governments.
Because we shouldn't have the SWAT teams. Defund all the SWAT teams.
Excuse me?
Defund all the SWAT teams. No.
Why?
Well, because we don't need every single police department does not need a SWAT team. You can have regional SWAT teams that you actually have to call for stuff.
Okay.
You can serve warrants without SWAT teams.
Let me describe this very specifically.
Okay.
I used to work in a kind of rural area. It was a hybrid. It was a community. It was a community. The way they did it is actually the way that you said, which is there were probably 3 or 4 different police departments. Each one of them had between like 20 and 50 people, and each one of them picked their most physically fit, competent, and maybe not intelligent. Let's not say intelligent, but physically fit and competent person. And they went to a rigorous school, like a hyper fucking rigorous school, and they picked like 4 of their best officers from every department. So it was
how big was this department?
Multi-county department that was only 12 guys out of probably 200 officers. It doesn't get much more selective. Yeah.
So that's more reasonable. Yeah, that would be.
That's how most people do it because they can't afford the team to begin
Well,
with.
but you can what I'm saying is you can have those at like a state level, right? You can have like a state troopers or whatever, like FDLE or something, who maintains like regional SWAT teams. Who, if you feel something is really high risk, you can justify it through those apparatuses to then go do it, as opposed to just having a judge go basically just sign off on your warrants for no reason because you have a SWAT team. You're like, hey, we want to go raid this house. It's a drug thing. We're worried they might flush the drugs, so like give us carte blanche to go no knock raid this house, and then they go and do it.
Here's my thing. So this is like a question of like incentive and motivation. Cops do what they're told. Let's be real here.
Yeah, but you can't be but you can't be told to go SWAT raid a house if you don't have a SWAT team.
Oh my! But there's real reasons to have a SWAT team.
Sure, and that's why you can have a localized. I'm not disagreeing that there are real reasons to have a SWAT team. I think those reasons tend to not be used, right? Like, for example, you could have done the high risk.
If you get shot by FDLE or you get shot by the regional SWAT team, what does it matter?
FDLE is not going to be serving drug warrants at 90% of the time.
Then the problem is the drug warrants, not the SWAT team.
Yeah, but because they have the SWAT teams, they want to use their fancy toys. Listen, okay, this is going to come off super hyperbolic. I don't know any other way to say it. Police are children, okay? I work with them. They're children. I love them, okay? But they're children. They like their fancy toys. They like doing fun things, and this is a very fun LARPy thing.
Everybody's children, friends. Like everybody's children.
Yeah, but not every job markets to you like, hey, like here's the fun, cool things you're gonna do. Watch you storm into this person's house and terrorize them. You know?
Okay, so literally, I don't. Let's not talk past each other.
Okay.
Let's just address this. Okay. If FDLE has a SWAT team, they're still going to kick in your fucking door.
Sure.
Okay? Unless you address the fact that cops are currently serving drug warrant.
No. So if you have less SWAT teams, they can't, like they should be serving. The idea of SWAT teams was to serve this essential function. You know, the high risk shit, right? We built them because, not Columbine, sorry. They had a SWAT team for Columbine who didn't go in until, I was going to mention this, but I'll just do it as a shot. Right, who didn't go in until an hour and a half after these dudes killed themselves, right? So the people bleeding out and dying, the SWAT team didn't even move in. So the idea was for these, I think it was the Texas clock tower shooting or something, was one of the main impetuses for SWAT teams. Where they're like, oh, we need these things to deal with these high risk incidents, and there are things that do require that, and I have no problem with that entity existing in a very structured, minimalist form. Like you could have like a rapid response team or something where like you can respond locally from like a state level.
So let me ask this question then. So
more bureaucracy.
Do you have a problem? Okay, you already said you don't have a problem with like AR-15s or whatever for cops, like having a patrol rifle. Don't have a problem with a patrol rifle. Do you have a problem with officers having like quick throw on hard plates? Like they don't wear hard plates all the time, but they just have they have hard plates in their cars. That way, if something serious pops off, they can just pop that over there.
Is that different than like a bulletproof vest, or sorry, I'm not.
Yeah. So it's higher rated. So it would stop rifle rounds. So if there was like a rifle scenario, or just like a gun scenario, then you at least have those higher duty plates because you don't know what you're rolling into.
Yeah, that seems all right.
Okay, all right, cool. Then let's find the point of agreement. Okay, largely, to be honest, like I think your point, I don't really care about. I don't care if it's state. I don't care if it's a state regional SWAT team. I don't care if the state maintains 20 fucking regional SWAT teams in the state of Florida, and they have like an A shift and a B shift, and literally all those guys do is serve warrants. I think they're going to be bored as fuck. But
I'm saying they wouldn't be serving warrants, right? Why would you be sending these teams to do such a petty task like that? That's what I'm saying. Like if you had instead of just having your command line, we're like, oh guys, we're going to go serve this,
right?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm saying there are things that would justify it, but the initial impetus for SWAT teams is those high-risk situations, which a drug thing doesn't have to be. A lot of the times, it's used because.
Well, hold on. So let's get really specific here. Okay. So like there was an Iranian gun ring in Orlando where they were literally shipping in full auto AKs into Orlando, and they had shipment containers, and they were meeting the buyers there or whatever in order to arrest them and also to seize the weapons. SWAT team, right?
Yeah, I guess.
You're literally buying assault rifles. Like, how much more dangerous can it be? Okay.
Well, I don't know all the specifics, but sorry, I guess sounds like I'm saying maybe not, but I'm like, that's like an 80% yes. I mean, I'm sure there are scenarios where maybe you wouldn't need it.
Okay. If I'm going into a situation,
maybe it's an open air AK swap meet, you know?
Okay. Well, if I'm rolling into a scenario that if I'm rolling into a scenario where the people I'm trying to arrest are literally selling assault rifles, yeah, I'm going to want the higher trained dudes who wear armor, who have assault rifle proof vehicles to take that
I already
call.
basically
Just
said yes to this. I'm not disagreeing with
personal
you.
preference. Okay, anyways. So, all right. So anyways. Okay, so let's think about another one. So decriminalization is still potentially a thing that I agree with, like the Portuguese model where we don't arrest junkies anymore. But that's not to say that there's not going to be drug dealing organizations like Mexican cartels who still produce vast quantities of cocaine, vast quantities of marijuana, vast quantities of ecstasy, and you're going to interdict on those larger distribution organizations, not necessarily because they're dealing drugs, but because they're dealing drugs. They're probably serving up some shit that's fucking poisoned. They're making fucking money off of it, and they're probably killing people in order to maintain money and cash flow. So you're still going to go after organized crime drug organizations that often have to defend their interests against rival armed drug organizations. So in the case, not in the case where you're raiding the local pot dealer,
yeah,
but in the case where you're raiding the internationally organized drug organization that fights for territory and kills people, SWAT team.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I need. And then fighting over whether or not it's like a local police department who set up like their fucking team or the state, I don't really give a fuck. So SWAT teams don't need to exist, and I think the point of agreement that we have.
I never said they don't need to
like,
exist. I said we could just directly just remove like trying to do SWAT teams from like localized departments in that manner and remove them to some regional thing where they're used much more discriminately.
Okay, fine. I literally don't care. The thing that I would focus on is the way they're being used, not who's doing it. Well, so you literally brought up this metaphor. If you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a fucking nail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not everything's a nail. And the problem is not the hammer existing, it's using the hammer judiciously. So that's where I think the American people, the legislatures, the judges, in the wake of Breonna Taylor, they need to start exercising some judiciousness. And when there's a high-profile killing of a normal citizen, which Breonna Taylor wasn't, by the way, but at the same time, when there's a high-profile fucking killing of a citizen, we can talk about it in a second.
Yeah.
When there's a high-profile killing of a citizen that didn't need to happen because of the overuse of SWAT teams, we need to start using our judgment better.
Yeah. I guess I would largely agree with that. I guess I think one thing I think where we're talking past each other a little bit is I'm not willing to disentangle the two because I don't think you can, right? I understand how logically you think you can disentangle these two, right? And the comparison I might make is like voter ID laws and like racism. I don't think you could reasonably disentangle those two, even though technically you could have voter ID laws that aren't racist. I think the way in practice you really can't because people don't want to. And I think the same thing goes for SWAT teams and police departments where, like, could you technically have a SWAT team that does the things we discussed that, like, yes, you want a SWAT team for that. You could, and it is theoretically possible, but in practice, it's not going to be how it works because we saw this literally across the whole country over the past 40 years. Like, there's, like, no SWAT teams. Like, I think if you go back to, like, the 1970s or 80s, there was, like, I think it was like 5% of police departments or something had SWAT teams. I'm making up that number, but it was very low. And now it's something like 80-something% of SWAT teams, police departments have SWAT teams. So you just see this large proliferation of that. Although you could argue the war on drugs made that more necessary. But we don't use them for the situations that you and I describe where you need them, where you're attacking like a distribution hub of a cartel where there's going to be violent people with probably like automatic rifles because they came over here from like, wherever cartels live now.
But see that's a weird thing to get hung up on too, because even if it was like a local drug network and all they had was pistols, like it doesn't matter. Like getting shot is getting shot.
But they don't get pistols to get into shootouts with the police usually. Like those are usually to defend themselves from other drug dealers and territorial disputes, which arise ironically as a result of drug wars.
You're like extending this weird faith to drug dealers, and like, dude, I'm sympathetic. My fucking little brother was a weed dealer who did get robbed and arrested. So I'm sympathetic to that, but dude, when like, oh man, like for me, maybe this is unsympathetic, but the fucking game's the game, dude. Like, if you start fucking dealing narcotics and carrying fucking guns, there's a chance that you're gonna get robbed. There's a chance you're gonna get killed. There's a chance that you're gonna get fucking arrested.
But
I don't understand why getting shot
here was on
with an
behalf
AK
of
by a Mexican cartel is any different than getting shot with a 9mm by a local banger. It's the same shit.
Well, no. So saying getting shot is probably like roughly the same. I'll grant you here. But the likelihood of getting shot and the likelihood of there being violence is what's different. I'm saying that you arguing the cartel or the Iranian arms dealers is much a higher risk scenario than your local guy who's just like, he lives with like his girlfriend and he has a handgun because he sells fucking cocaine or whatever, versus him, you just pick him up when he's like at the fucking local supermarket or something, or when he goes out to like get smokes at 1 a.m.
Look, we agree. Yeah, we agree on this. So I don't want to belabor the point, because I do think it would be smarter. Like I've taken people in public, and it was always better than taking them in private. Like it was always better, always, because like they wanted to resist, but they didn't want to get killed, and they wanted to resist, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to be embarrassed, basically. So when that's possible. When you think a person is receptive to that, sure, I don't give a fuck. But at the same time, the public has to get used to conceptually seeing the fucking trash getting taken out. So the public has to get used to cops, guns drawn, Target parking lot, showing up and snatching somebody. And I don't think a lot of people are ready for that. I really don't.
Well, you wouldn't even want to do that, right? Wouldn't you want like plainclothes detectives to go like apprehend this person? Yeah. Would that be probably how you? Well, because to me that's like the good detective work, right? You want to go like raid, like if you want to go catch a drug dealer, you do the work, you find out his like routine, you watch him for a little bit, track their cell phone or whatever you need to do. You find out like, oh, every morning at 1 o'clock they go and pick up a 6-pack from like the local convenience store, and you pick him up while he's over there. Will he maybe have a gun? Well, sure, but like when you break into his house at 3 a.m. When he thinks like, oh, I have this rival drug dealer who I've been beefing with. Guess what? Guess which scenario is most likely going to have shots fired? Where's there going to be collateral damage?
You kind of memed earlier too about like no more cop cars. Like you got to walk fucking 20,000 steps a day.
I was half memeing.
Yeah, well, I'm okay with the meme because I think the same way that the SWAT team could specialize in such a way that they like raid houses and kick doors and like all that kind of shit. Specifically for those very high risk scenarios. I think you could specialize a team of detectives who are physically fit, smart, know how to investigate, and know how to do like quiet takedowns. And like I don't mean like literally physically quiet. I mean like how do we get somebody who we know is a problem into cuffs without incident? And you could have like a whole new branch of law enforcement created around this idea of how do we take potentially violent subjects who have serious arrest warrants into custody without incident and without property damage. And literally like even starting there as like a baseline idea is actually by itself, like I'm not even saying that you and I came up with a good idea. We came up with the beginning of a good idea. There's probably so many like tactics and places and different like venues and communicative strategies and like all that kind of stuff that could all be brought onto the single issue of how do you take a potentially violent offender into custody without incident, maximally with like zero injury and zero property damage being the ideal. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I think that's an interesting idea.
I'm 100% on board that. I think this is sort of like a meta thing, and I'm gonna like rant a little bit here. And I feel like this is something I have a hard time like explaining to people, because it's very, very like to an extent like we're encultured by like the environment we grow up in, and by to an extent I mean that is 100% true for every single person in the world. You are a byproduct of like largely, if not entirely, of like the environment you're in, like the way you normalize things, what you conceive, everything is framed by like the words of the environment you live in. And to unabstract that, the way you and I are talking about this, I think is interesting because it's not ahistorical, but we're talking about this as though it's like always like a thing, but like this modern era policing where you have like SWAT teams in full like riot gear, where you have Or and then you have like a riot gear responding to protests, where you have flashbangs being used, all these random like devices, the militarization of police. This is very, very recent. This is like the last 40-ish years, particularly once the war on drugs hit a high ground, where this became normalized, where we went from having dozens of SWAT raids a year to thousands or tens of thousands of SWAT raids a year across the country. This is a freak moment in time, right? And one thing I think to give a comparison, it's similar to me talking about like the way like we view criminals in America and the way we have our criminal justice system, and to express to people just how insane this is, right? Like, it's very hard to explain to an American how fucking weird the world we live in right now. Like, we look back like 50 years ago and we're like, we made black people drink at separate water fountains? Dude, that was disgusting. We are such a better place now. It's like, now we just have like 2 million people incarcerated and who live as like second-class citizens because like when they get out, we remove their right to like the whole prison industrial complex, the way that's used right now, we have the highest incarcerated population in the world in both per capita and raw numbers, even though China and India, places that are horrible and ran by like totalitarian regimes. Well, I don't know if it'd be fair to call India. Sorry, I'm being petty here. But like these countries have 1 billion more people than us, but less raw prisoners than us. That's insane. Right? And it's hard to contextualize just how insane that is because I was born in 89. It's been this way since I was born. This is everything I've known, you know?
This is where I want to push back a little bit because I feel like you're the kind of person that I could push back with without starting to fucking somebody pissing blood. So basically it's like you're right in a sense that the modern era of like tactical policing or whatever is new. It has been the past 40 or 50 years, but this is where I get frustrated in the conversation, and I'm literally fucking trapped between you and Lauren Southern. Okay, how frustrating is that? Okay,
hot.
So yeah. This is where I'm fucking trapped. Okay, so I want to concede all this ground. You know, the drug war is weird. We treat drug felons like literally like enemy combatants, like that's the way we conceptualize it. We have a very good guy bad guy dynamic. Any of the things that could prevent a bad guy from existing, we don't do. We just create our own villains and then fight them and then act like we're doing good things. That's disgusting to me. But at the same time, you are talking about a unique moment in history, but you're also talking about a lot of really rapid changes over the past 40 or 50 years. 1960 was, from a crime perspective, a pretty idyllic society. Like basically, we had crime rates that were comparable to literally the modern era right now, but we didn't have mass incarceration. And there's a whole bunch of different things that changed. Demography changed, to give credit where credit's due to immigration and demography and culture, but also the drug war completely changed. Drug war completely professionalized between the 60s to the 90s. Like what was available on the street in 1960 is not what was available in 1990 in quantity, potency, efficacy, anything. So drugs completely changed the fucking game. And then basically the way law enforcement worked also completely fucking changed. But in 1994, you did have this draconian crackdown on what was viewed as crime completely out of control. And it was effectively double or triple the amount of like violent crime and homicides that we have right now. So what I really don't like about fucking Zoomers in particular is they just act like the era of mass incarceration just fucking shat out of nowhere. No, it came from a fucking doubling or tripling of fucking violent crime in the United States over 30 or 40 years. It came from a fucking drug pandemic that was killing fuckloads more people than it was now, or at least that's the impression that I get from the fucking crack epidemic.
Oh, hold on! I gotta fact check you here. This is actually what's why this came up in the Destiny debate.
Fact check me on the fucking drug deaths if you want. But
no, not the deaths. The crack epidemic came after the drug war. The crack literally didn't even exist until the late 80s. But like the drug war was already in full force by then, though, and drug use was on the decline.
The drug war isn't like oftentimes it's like it's couched as this like unilateral escalation by law enforcement. I mean, if you look at any of the documentaries surrounding like the narco cartels of like South and Central America or whatever, in the 60s and 70s, that's when they were born. That's when they became alive.
Mm.
We didn't have the same amount of cocaine. Like cocaine and marijuana became industrialized on a capitalist scale. So it wasn't just law enforcement that like unilaterally escalated the drug war.
But
It
they're
was a
creating a
very
market by
real
doing that.
increase in drug production.
Well, but by starting a like literal war on drugs in your country and targeting people for selling drugs, you're creating a market, right? You have a drug dealer, and then you have a demand for drugs because like I'm trying to think of the metaphor for this. Hold on.
Drugs are good, buddy.
Like when you like when you
No, I'm dead serious. The reason why people do heroin, the reason why people do crack cocaine is because it feels good.
it numbs the pain of capitalism.
It,
I'm sorry. I had to do it. I had to get the meme.
It's because we're not an authoritarian communist society where we can just throw junkies in the fucking river after we duct tape their hands behind their back. That's why.
Hey, listen,
but anyway,
it was Reagan who buried the methadone study showing how effective it was on drug users, so he can continue ramping up the war on drugs. Never forget that. Okay.
Okay. So all right, I get it. White people bad. I got it. So
the fuck you.
The question.
Reagan
the question
bad.
is,
White people good.
Yeah. So. No, but that's the question. So so mass incarceration in the era of mass incarceration was not an act of like enlightened fucking enlightened justice by America. It was an act of desperation. We didn't know what we were doing. We had a problem that we couldn't control. So we did something that was probably fucked up, but in our view at the time, bear in mind I was like 7 or 8 years old at the time, that like mass incarceration was preferable to the basically the crime that we had on our streets at the time. So that's kind of where mass incarceration is not the long-term solution. That was a stopgap. That was to stop crime. That was to breathe. That was to rebuild the economy. That was to try to rebuild communities. But now we have communities that are fundamentally broken by the drug war, and we've done nothing to make them better. So we have brown and black people whose lives have been completely fucked up by drugs, completely fucked up by the drug war. And this is part of my frustration with the documentary that I participated in, because the documentary that I participated in just says, yeah, there's reasons for why. And that's it. No solutions. And that's where I think we have a failure.
Yeah. I think like part of my problem with that is like the solutions I see to the drug war and like mass incarcerations involve like a fundamental paradigm shift in how we view, well, I mean, we're getting there on drug use, I guess, right? I mean, where they just legalized shrooms in Oregon and shit, and weed's legal in what, like 20 states now or something. So like I feel like we're getting there on drug use, but our view of criminals, I feel like, is so warped at this point. Like doing them as like moral, like sinners deserving of punishment. And I was having this argument with like I don't know, I guess it was like Legit or something, about how like I think we just need to abandon retribution as a concept in criminal justice. Like just get rid of it. I don't care. The only point of a punishment is to force rehabilitation. Like there's no punitive element here. Like from a philosophical firm, which is like a really hard thing to like describe, and then figuring out how to pitch that to like people who are more authoritarian minded. Because that's not popular in any group, by the way. I'm not pretending that that's a widespread idea.
I was about to say it's not even popular with me in this conversation, because like, so for instance, my wife was talking to me about the Ohio kidnapper, the guy who had like 3 women chained in his house for like 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And he basically said like beat them with a pipe and tortured animals in front of them and like force fed them food and literally killed puppies in front of them and raped them repeatedly and like all that kind of shit. I don't give a fuck about rehabilitation for that person. And they killed themselves in jail a few months into their sentence. If that person hadn't killed themselves, I would happily have walked into that jail cell myself and put like a fucking like I think a 45 like a 45 caliber or a 9mm round costs about like 15 to 50 cents right now. I would happily put that person down myself.
I don't.
So, what's that?
Sorry, continue.
No. So that's not correct, right? That's not a correct moral. Well, maybe it is, but that's not justice. That's vengeance, right?
Yeah.
And that's not correct. But I don't care. And that's where there's just some aspects of me that might be irrational that I just accept, and that's one of them. So if you take innocent life, regardless of species, and you torture it intentionally, to me, I don't care what happens to you.
Yeah.
I literally don't. And that, yeah. So I'm not saying it's a moral argument. I'm not even saying it's a correct argument. I'm just saying it's the way that I actually feel.
Yeah, I think like that's the really hard thing to like convince people of, and I'm definitely not going to do this conversation because I know you probably want to wrap up soon, understandably so. But
Yeah,
like
no,
like
that's the problem. We talk for too long, and we don't get all the places that we want to,
yeah.
but it's all good.
Um,
That's the problem.
there's that like innate like urge to like I think I don't know if it's an exclusively American thing or not because I live here my whole fucking life. So and ostensibly you have too. So it's pretty difficult for us to step outside that framework. But
It's
like
probably stronger in America. I think
yeah,
that's safe
yeah.
safe to assume.
Where it's like I understand the impulse to like hurt these people, right? For doing things that we perceive as like egregious. And there's an interesting article I had to read for my master's program. I think it was last semester, and they give you they give you first the one side and then they give you the other half. First it's what the guy did. He's a fucking horrible person. I think he just murdered like a few people and like did it in this really like terrible way, and it was I think he murdered some gay people. Like it was like 3 gay dudes, and he just like murdered the fuck out of like 2 and tried to kill the third one and was arrested for that. And then when they got to like the mitigating factors, they talk about how like he was just like raped and abused like his whole life. Like this dude had a horrible upbringing. And I'm not saying that means what he did was okay. That is never what the answer is. It doesn't make things okay just because you experience trauma. But it means that we need to approach this with empathy. Empathy doesn't mean that, oh, we give him like some lollipops, tell him like the world loves him and release him back into society. For some people, like the Anders Breiviks of the world, you're never getting out. The rehabilitation for you is I give you a nice safe place for you to be fucking crazy for the rest of your life. Okay? A nice padded room with a Game Boy with Tetris installed on it. Okay, that's what you get. You get decent accommodations until you fucking die. Okay, and like that's sort of how I view it. Now I want to like, but the reason I think we need to adopt like that framework, and I say this to my lefty brethren because I think it's really bad to give into that retributive framework because you're fundamentally giving into that idea that this is something we need in society or it's something that we should value, and once you like sort of like seed that ground, I feel like you can't really get away from like an argument someone's making about why these people deserve like moral like condemnation and therefore like harsh penalties.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. My arguments are not rooted. They're not rooted in science. They're not rooted in stats. They're not rooted in even a complex philosophy. It's a very base human urge to take somebody who did something terrible and to punish them. And basically, like you're talking about, like whether or not it's correct, like morally or whatever, to fucking, once you hear what they are or what they went through in order to become what they became. That for me is like, maybe the inky black of oblivion. Maybe that will be the thing that you need. So that's kind of where that's probably a rationalization to justify my own anger and my own disgust. So I'm hopefully being honest enough to admit that it's probably just my caveman brain talking.
Yeah.
But that is the way that I feel.
Well, I think what I think can sort of fight against that caveman brain instincts. If I tell you that caveman brain instincts to get you that one vengeance will cost you like 10 innocent people dying or having their potential or lives wasted as a result of that.
But I would see the argument as almost opposite, where you would have to show me that this model of rehabilitation would be better for society and actually result in less crime and less death.
Yeah.
So and I'm not saying you're wrong, by the way, because I'm pretty sure like the Norway and Sweden or whatever have this model, and I'm pretty sure that they legit shit just have like less everything than us.
Yeah, but they don't have that 1350 problem. They got the 13 less problem. Okay.
Well, yeah, but that's my thing. Like, so this is where I'm like legit shit stuck. So for anybody who's watching, it's like I don't want to ignore and I'm not saying you do, by the way, but I don't want to ignore the evils of the world or inconvenient stats or anything like that. But I also don't want to say that the situation is hopeless and we can't make it better. And that's what I think conservatives do often, is they just say, hey, yeah, it's fucked up, but there's a reason why it's fucked up, so we don't have to change anything. And I think that's insufficient.
Do you read books too, or do you only listen to books?
No, I mean, like I don't read as much as I should, but I primarily listen nowadays just because of time.
Yeah, it's like I got shit to do. Okay, I'm driving places, listen to audiobook. At the gym, listen to audiobook. Running, audiobook. When I'm home, it's just like I'm fucking off, yelling at Sargon of Akkad's fans.
Yeah, Sargon of Akkad streamers. So yeah, so I'm good here. And honestly, like my neck's driving me crazy. I popped it weird. But I think we should probably pin it here, and then we can do it again, because I think even now, 2 hours and 15 minutes, I'm probably gonna have to I might even split it up into 2 episodes just for shits and gigs.
Yeah, I think it's probably split about an hour and change on each one. So
yeah, and then so which one we left off on the one that I wanted, right? The race realism. That's the one that we didn't get to.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that one.
Okay, that's fine. That's what Discord is for. But do you want to shout yourself out? Do you want to shout your channel? Do you want to shout your band Twitter? Do you want to shout your
Twitter thing wouldn't be too useful now, huh? Because we're not going to contest that thing for months. Oh yeah, my name's Joe. I have the handle GKR. I'm usually posting an occasional YouTube video. Sometimes I'm thinking about doing some more longer form content, but sometimes it's just it's mainly just whatever the fuck's on my mind in a given moment. So feel free to subscribe to it or hop on Connor's Discord and yell at me about stuff. And that's about it.
And then if I don't remember now, then I'll need to remember then to definitely fucking link your shit so people can find you easily.
Yeah, it does not show up when you search my name on YouTube.
When I search GKR, it's like racing videos, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like I'm literally subscribed to this guy, and I'm looking for him, and it's not popping up. What the fuck?
Yeah, it doesn't work out too well.
We got
to hit that threshold, and then we'll get there.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, and then like, share, subscribe, dislike, all that YouTube nonsense. I'll see you guys in the next one, and you'll definitely be seeing, GKR in the future as well. Catch you.
Hey guys, have a good night.